Good morning. We have a quorum, so I want to get started. The one item on the agenda before closed session is the labor update. Jennifer Schembri.
Good morning, Jennifer Schembri, Deputy Director of Employee Relations. We have in front of you a few proposals received from our Association of Building, Mechanical, and Electrical Inspectors, ABMEI, that have been received in the last few weeks, and that concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much. I have no request to speak, so we're going to adjourn into closed session. We will return at 1:30. Meeting to order. This is City Council meeting for October 22nd, 2013. We will commence our meeting with an invocation, and Councilmember Rocha will introduce our invocator.
Thank you, Mayor. And you're going to have to bear with me a second. I seem to have misplaced the introduction. So why don't I just call up the individual as it stands? So please, forgive me, I can't find the introduction page.
Christina Garcia from Latina Coalition of Silicon Valley might be a good guess, but I'm not sure.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. It was only a year ago that I was going through the motions of attending class, but feeling like something was missing from my life. I wanted to be doing more for myself, for my community. With the encouragement of a friend, I decided to apply to the AYA program. I'm very grateful to that friend because it was through the AYA program that I was able to meet some incredible Latinas who are working hard to make a difference in the community. They have their 8-to-5 jobs, and yet they still find time in their busy schedules to work hard at making LCSV and the AYA program what it is today. It is with their continued support and encouragement that I have been able to gain more confidence in myself and my abilities. I know full well that I can do anything that I set my mind to, but the AYA program helped me to see this in times of discouragement so that I was able to rise above any problems I was facing and find strength in myself. Having remembered everything I learned, I continued applying for internships, and I'm now proud to say that I have 2. LCSV helped me to find Latina leaders to look up to, something which I personally didn't see very much of growing up. Sure, I had my family, but there weren't many Latinas in politics or leadership roles for me to look up to. While that number is higher today, the disparity is still there. The simple truth of the matter is we need more Latino representatives in leadership roles to power our economy, because we need to continue to inspire others to push forward and achieve their dreams. This can only be achieved through our strength as a community. When we work hard, we inspire others through our efforts, just as LCSV and my fellow AYAs inspired me to work harder for myself, and thus for my community. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're being joined by 3rd graders from Anderson Elementary School who will help us with the pledge. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item of business are the orders of the day. I want to take a minute to explain what is proposed on the orders of the day based on what you see on the agenda, along with probably a couple more changes that we need to consider under orders of the day. First, we've had a request to drop item 2.7. That's the Aquatic Service Agreements extension. That request comes from the administration. And as noted in the agenda, we are adding item 2.16, which is to add a general plan hearing for November 19th, 2013. We're adding item 4.5, which is a motion and waiver of a 7-day advance online posting of October 23rd Planning Commission agenda. And then we had a request, and I've recommended deferral of items 10.2, 11.2, and 11.3 pertaining to a request for the general plan amendment, rezoning, and a purchase and sale agreement with Launchpad Development Company for the construction of a rocket ship at Tamian Public Schools. There's a request and recommendation to defer item 10.4, 5 Wounds Village plans, or Roosevelt Park, 24th William Street and Little Portugal plans to November 19th, 2013, the general plan date discussed in item 2.16. Also, a continuation of item 10.5 regarding adopting a resolution, on all general plan amendments, which we do at the end of the general plan process, so we need to defer that until we get through with the general plan hearings on November 19th. And I understand Councilmember Oliverio wishes to request a deferral of items 10.3 and 11.4 regarding pre-zoning on Thornton Way. Is that correct, Councilmember Oliverio?
Yes.
Then, if all of that were approved, I think this is the key point here, what we will have on the agenda for this evening, despite the complicated looking agenda, would be items 10.A, B, and C, and items 11A, 11B, and 11.6, plus the ceremonial items. So obviously the evening's agenda would be quite a bit shorter than originally contemplated if the orders of the day are approved as I've just described them. So, any other changes to the agenda under orders of the day other than what I've just described? Councilmember KALRA.
Sorry, Mayor, I hadn't logged in yet. So the requests that you're making to have, first of all, I'm fine with having a Tuesday, November 19th evening meeting. We're probably going to need it with the suggested deferrals. I have no problem with the idea of getting home a little earlier tonight than I would have anticipated. On the 10.2, 11.2, 11.3 set for this evening, I would, since it was set for 7 p.m., I would certainly feel more comfortable having a motion to defer actually decided this evening, because I imagine there are going to be a lot of people that will be here that won't know it was deferred, that are going to show up and wonder what's going on. And I'd rather have at least that discussion. It may obviously add to how long we may be here tonight, but I think at the very least, given clearly from all sides, I think we've all been getting feedback on this matter. And although it may be more appropriate, or there may be legitimate reason to have it deferred to November, I think the motion for deferral should be heard publicly tonight.
Well, I think that would make it more confusing for the public because of what they've been informed, which is the council will consider the deferral this afternoon, and then either we defer it or we don't defer it this afternoon so that people know they should come tonight because there are organized groups for and against those items. So it's better to take the action in the afternoon so that people have the hours to get themselves organized.
However, the only counter to that, and this has occurred in other situations where we've had deferrals or motions to defer, is that if some folks are expecting to come this evening and they're not able to make it at the next hearing, they can at least speak to the deferral as opposed to not having the opportunity to speak at all. And so that's just my thought on that, of having the motion to defer actually heard at the time that the item is supposed to be heard prior to any council action.
Well, but if it's on the agenda and the council decides not to defer it, then you're in a position where a lot of people think it's going to be deferred. You take action on it, and that's also not helpful from the public's point of view.
Excuse me, Mayor, but having the motion to defer heard tonight as opposed to being done during orders of the day. That's my suggestion.
I understand that. Anything else on orders of the day? We have a motion to approve the orders of the day. On that motion, all in favor? Opposed? One opposed, two opposed. Campos and KALRA motion is approved. Then that takes care of a little bit of housekeeping on the orders of the day. So again, this evening we'll hear items 10.A, B, and C, which is the consent calendar, 11A and B, and then 11.6 will be heard this evening, with other matters deferred to, as noted earlier. As noted in the agenda, we will be adjourning this meeting in memory of Cindy Avitia, resident of District 8, and known to many people on the council. Councilmember Campos has some more to say.
Thank you, Mayor. Today's adjournment is one that I give with a heavy heart. The city of San Jose has lost an extended member of its family. On August 22nd, Cindy Avitia passed away at the young age of 42 in Parral, Chihuahua, Mexico. Cindy and her family were returning from a vacation. With the loss of Cindy, we are left with great sadness, and my sincere condolences go out to her husband, Jose, her 2 young children, Mr. and Mrs. Avitia, Sonia and Rafael, and to all her friends and family members and colleagues. Cindy was a truly amazing person. She carried with her an immense passion for justice, and her involvement in the community expressed her commitment for bettering the lives of so many. She dedicated her life to do so. Cindy graduated from Stanford in 1993 with a BA in political science and received her law degree in public interest and social justice from Santa Clara University. I truly value the commitment Cindy had for her community, and combined with her intelligence, she was definitely a force not to be ignored, and those folks that have worked with her really knew that about Cindy. Cindy was a Human Relations Commissioner from 2007 to 2009. She worked tirelessly on immigration issues in the office of Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren. She was an immigration consultant and a very, very strong community activist. In the spring of 2001, Cindy played a leading role in a broad community-based coalition of service providers, including the East San Jose Community Law Center, Siren, Center for Employment Training, and the Asian Law Alliance to assist immigrants eligible under the 245I provision of the Life Act. As a result of this work, hundreds of families were able to reunite their families and obtain work authorization permits. Also in 2012, Cindy led the CET effort to serve youth who qualified for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival, also known as DACA. She was a teacher and a mentor for so many young women that were pursuing an education and wanted a better life for themselves. Cindy's work in the community is endless, and her self-sacrifice will be unmatched. Her tragic loss is felt by so many, but let us not forget the impact she had while she was here. Although she's no longer with us, her spirit will always live on. We must do her the honor of continuing her legacy of community work and continue the journey toward justice and equality. Cindy will truly be missed by all. But most importantly, Cindy was not just a community activist that most folks that have come in contact with Cindy has known her. Cindy was the loving daughter of Carlos and Consuelo Avitia. Consuelo Avitia is a San Jose family member working in the office of the city clerk. She's also the sister of Sonia Avitia, my very good friend, Sonia, excuse me. The loving wife of Jose, who was also a city family member, worked in the redevelopment agency, and the loving mother of her 2 beautiful children, Dalia and Carlos. I know how hard this is for our city, and it's impacted everyone beyond the Avitia family. I've known Cindy since she was in middle school when Sonia and I knew each other in high school, and you just knew that that spirit was going to carry on in so many things that she did, and you know, I think the work that she's done in our city is a testament to that. Everything we do in our city to make someone's life better is truly, we're living the spirit of Cindy Avitia. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Campos. I want to thank the family for being here today. This is a loss for all of us as well as for the family. Our next item is the closed session report. City Attorney.
We have no report.
We'll now take up the ceremonial items. I'd like to start by inviting Councilmember Campos to join me at the podium as we proclaim October 17th as Light on After School Day.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. Every year, hundreds of children, parents, business, and community leaders come together for Lights On After School events at schools nationwide. Lights On After School celebrates the achievements of after-school students and is intended to draw attention to the need for more after-school programs to serve our unsupervised, at-risk children nationwide. Too many children roam the streets or are home without parent supervision after their last class and run the risk of being lured into bad behavior. With the help of Lights On After School, we can encourage more funding to go into after-school programs to ensure our children have quality activities after their last class at school. Joining us today is Doran Hassan, who is the after-school and enrichment program specialist for the YMCA of Silicon Valley. It is individuals like Mrs. Hassan who understand the importance of keeping our children busy after school with homework assistance, mentoring, tutoring, and classes and clubs in sports, recreation, and mathematics. The list is endless that our young folks can get involved in. Mrs. Hassan and the YMCA understand the need for more programs, and I am thrilled to have her with us today to help me bring awareness to this important nationwide cause. With that, Mayor Chuck Reed, I ask that you present this proclamation to Doreen Hassan. Thank you. I'd like to say a few words.
Thank you, Councilmember Campos, and thank you, Mayor Chuck Reed. It is an honor to be here today. After-school programs are so dynamic and provide young people with not just a safe place to go, but enriching activities, opportunities for access to books and support academically. What we do after school is so much more than just really getting kids together in a place to go, but really helping to close the achievement gap and helping to close the access gap to resources and opportunities to thrive. In addition, for working at the YMCA, I'm here on behalf of the Santa Clara County After School Collaborative, representing our agencies such as the Catholic Charities Choral, the Think Together, as well as the City of San Jose After School programs, and it really is an honor to receive this award, and thank you for all those who support our programs. Just out of curiosity, how many of you went to an after-school program? Yay! And it does amazing things. Yay, Suzanne. And so I want to thank you again, and please come visit any of our programs across Santa Clara County and the City of San Jose. In the county, we have 160 programs that are publicly funded, serving close to 15,000 students. And that's 15,000 students that wouldn't be served if not for Prop 49. So thank you for all of your support.
Next, I'd like to invite David Hull, Senior Director of Safety and Security for eBay, and representatives from the Office of Emergency Services to join me at the podium. Today, we're presenting a commendation to eBay for their donation of an 800-square-foot mobile emergency operations trailer to the Office of Emergency Services. 2 months ago, eBay, which was started in San Jose, of course, we're very proud to have eBay as one of our native sons and daughters companies. They have their headquarters here, and they donated very generously emergency operations trailer to the city to be used as our mobile emergency operations center. Hopefully we never have to use it, but we do need to be prepared. eBay had intended to sell it. I suppose they were going to post it and sell it. What else would you do but eBay? For about $200,000. So this thing is worth a lot of money, but after some consideration, they concluded since their employees and their employees' families live in San Jose, work around San Jose, the best use of the trailer would be to donate it to the city. We agree. So here we are, and David Hull is going to accept this commendation on behalf of eBay. Why don't we all come around here to get in the camera shot?
I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the Mayor and the City of San Jose for recognising this contribution. It's actually our pleasure to have been able to donate and make the contribution of this vehicle to the San Jose Office of Emergency Services and the community at large, one in which, of course, we're headquartered. So thank you very much. Thank you.
For our next item, I'd like to invite Bill Wright and Reverend Dave Mercer of St. Thomas of Canterbury Church to join me at the podium. Councilmember Constant was planning to present this commendation, but he's out of town on a family emergency, and we're going to proceed anyway. I'm sure he's watching this on the webcast. We're commending St. Thomas of Canterbury Church for their effort in completing 1,400 miles by bicycle in honor of the late Father Mark Catalana. Father Mark Catalana was an unusually attentive, caring person who touched the lives of many people. After he passed on in a tragic bicycle accident, Bill Wright launched an effort called Miles for Father Mark to honor his memory and help accomplish his goal of riding 100,000 miles by his 50th birthday. And Bill Wright is here to accept on behalf of St. Thomas of Canterbury Church.
Well, I'd like to thank the council for bestowing this award on such a wonderful man. He was more than a priest, he was a friend, and just if you got to know him, you'd be in his congregation. He was a person that called you on your birthday, called you on your anniversary, called you when you were sick, and always had time to talk to you. I can see where he gets his love and his smiles. It's from his family. If you just take one look at them, they're always smiling and they're always happy and they're always ready to be there. And I thank you again for this commendation.
Thank you very much. Let's just form it up for a photo here. Our next item is the consent calendar. I have no requests to speak. There are a couple of requests to pull items for discussion. Item 2.12, Councilmember KHAMIS. 2.5, Councilmember KALRA. Councilmember Rocha.
2.5, please.
Any others besides 2.5 and 2.12? All right. We have some requests to speak on the consent calendar before we take action. Mr. Wall.
This is in reference to Economic Competitiveness Committee and the Rules and Open Government Committee reports. The Environmental Innovation Center was discussed, and there's still no answer publicly how Habitat for Humanity, a well-funded organization, is going to receive 40 months of free rent. That's 3 years and 4 months of free rent at San Jose's Environmental Innovation Center when it becomes operational. Also, ordinance number 29321 is a slap to every employee's face who is a member of our United States Armed Forces, specifically of how you've reduced pay and benefits and retirement issues with these employees who risk their life and limb to be members of our armed forces and then make them pay their contributions just because they receive a small pittance from the military. Also, sir, your trips now concerning the vested employee rights junkets to Hoover Institute and to New York and Washington, D.C., although I guess that's within your purview of doing what you want to do, but you're screwing up your council committee assignments. We missed you. We didn't have a quorum at Rules last week. You're going to be gone tomorrow. So I think you should consider concocting some type of secession. If you're not available because you're out politicking, doing these other things, not being able to do your job on your committee reports, why don't you pick another council member to show up or a member from the public at large to show up to vote on issues for the agenda so the business of the city can go forward. Thank you.
That concludes testimony on the consent calendar. Is there a motion on the balance? Motion is to approve the balance consent calendar. So we have 2.5 and 2.12. They're pulling off for separate action. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That's approved. 2.5 is the trip report. Councilmember Rocha.
Thank you, Mayor. And, the mayor and I attended the San Jose Silicon Valley Chamber of Commerce study mission trip on October 16th to the 18th to Los Angeles County. The trip in the morning started with a Metro subway ride to their Union Station, where we heard about their planned redevelopment of the station and surrounding area. We then later visited Pasadena City Hall and were presented with some of their economic development efforts from their mayor and Chamber of Commerce individuals. We also toured some commercial and residential projects and concluded the day with a presentation from the LA Chamber of Commerce on their work program and efforts. The city was well represented not only by myself and the mayor, but also a number of city staff that also participated in the trip. The next day, we did a tour of their LA River Revitalization Project, which I felt was probably the most interesting component of the trip. Unfortunately, after that, I needed to return to San Jose, and I left the chamber trip. So, thank you.
We do appreciate Councilman Rocha being back in time for the city-county joint meeting on Friday morning. There were others, I think, who had trip reports in no particular order. Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended, as a San Jose delegate, Sister City trip to Dublin, Ireland on the 13th to the 18th. KALRA was our lead of the delegation, so I'm sure he's going to do a more thorough report on it. But I wanted to say that I felt it was a very worthwhile trip. The Sister City relationship started with Dublin 27 years ago and was started to promote economic development. And we did spend several very interesting meetings at various places learning about what they're doing in Dublin. And at one of these meetings at Intel, there's a very interesting project, a digital lab, and looking at mapping their city in Dublin and providing a technology overlay, which I think could be useful in San Jose. And we talked to them about possibly being a pilot project for that. I think that it's really important, a city the size of San Jose and as a global city, maintaining relationships with cities like Dublin. And it's more than just, traveling there. It's also maintaining those relationships. And Dublin comes to San Jose every year. We go there every 2 years. It was my first opportunity to go there. And it's really an impressive city. I think one of the most impressive things we saw was how walkable the city is. And there's many areas within Dublin that cars are not needed at all. You can walk throughout it. And it inspires me in terms of our general plan and the direction we're trying to go with making our city focus more around humans, less about cars. Some of the things we saw there, I think, inspire me to want to do that. And they have a bike share program where there were no bikes in the racks at all. They were completely being utilized. Although their bike share program has been going for 4 years, ours is relatively new. We can see how bike sharing really does work. It was a wonderful opportunity to meet with them and to learn about what they're doing, to learn some of the similarities and some of the things we can do to work together in helping support growing businesses and opportunities there and as well in San Jose. And I was privileged to be with my colleagues and all of the other individuals. I want to say thank you to Tim Quigley, who was the leader of the Sister City relationship, and Joe Hedges for all of their hard work working together. Thank you.
Councilor KALRA.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a report on the Dublin trip, and I'm actually going to have subsequently a written report with greater detail regarding our trip since we just got back, so there hasn't been time to do that. But I just want to verbally at least report back on the trip to Ireland. I want to thank you, Mayor, for designating me as the lead. We had 4 council members attend, which I think was very well regarded by our representatives in Dublin, both from the business community, the academic community, as well as from the city. I think it was a strong showing, and they were very happy to have a delegation, not just of council members, but our city management, as well as business leaders and academic leaders as well. And so I'll get into greater detail when I actually write the written report. I will just simply say, especially with not just with their delegation coming again in March, but with the Sister Cities Conference, the national conference being here in San Jose next year, this trip is an excellent prelude to building upon the relationship that we have with Dublin already. There are a number of ideas that we gain from them, and we certainly are happy to share with them in terms of what we're doing as a city. The plastic bag ban, the bike share program, these are all different programs that were implemented in Dublin first. And of course, additionally, not just the academic exchange of students that will be able to come back and forth from our university to the universities there, but the economic exchange and by opening ourselves up as a global city, and there's a lot of investment that's going back and forth between us and Dublin right now, and any opportunity we have to attract some companies to come here, I think is overall a boon to the city, and will certainly make the trip worthwhile. It's difficult for any of us to be away from San Jose for that long, and I think the fact that we had a really good-sized delegation and an effective delegation is not just important for building the relationship, but for potentially starting new relationships that can be beneficial for economic development as well as for cultural and civic exchange.
Councilor KHAMIS.
Yeah, I too want to echo, I was on the trip as well, and I want to echo my colleagues' sentiments, the 27-year relationship with Dublin. I was proud to be part of the delegation, and I learned a lot. I feel like it was a very worthwhile trip. I especially focused on some of the competitiveness aspects of the trip, because in learning what they do to attract business, I think we could definitely learn from their model. They have a very, very favorable tax and policy preference to attracting more business. In fact, they've attracted Intel to build a new facility, and they have actually designed their first chip outside the United States, which is interesting. So I mean, the thing that I got out of it is we need to look at how competitive we are, and as far as our taxes and our stability. In fact, I loved what Ash said during the Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I'm going to quote him because I was really proud of the statement that he made. And I think once policymakers put regulatory and tax policies in place, they need to get out of the way so business can do what it does best. And I want to thank him for his statements and his leadership on that trip. And I found their green economy and environmental work to be striking. Things that they do took me by surprise, is they actually take their waste and turn it into energy, and that's something that I will personally, my office will look into. Coming out of that, I was really impressed to see that they do something with their waste other than burying it. So overall, I wanted to express my thanks to the people who put this thing together, and I was very delighted to be, even though it was a very hectic day in, day out schedule, I was really, really impressed with what we learned.
Councilor Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. I too joined the delegation. I won't repeat what's been said, but as you can tell, a lot took place on this trip. But one of the things that really stood out was the importance from sister cities, that how much cities need to be mirrored by each other when we get into sister city relationships. And Dublin truly is our twin. You know, when you look at the tech that's there, the industry that's there, how much Dublin goes out of its way to attract industry. You have Facebook, Dell, Intel, Google, all of those companies that are based here in Silicon Valley are focused there in Europe. And I think the other thing that was very nice to see is, you know, Dublin just completed their sister city process with the city of Guadalajara. We're in the final stages of becoming sister cities with Guadalajara, and they talked about it at every session that we were at, a tech triangle between the three cities, knowing that these three cities are that much more important in terms of technology and the business that can go through the three. So I'm looking forward to, once we finish our process, that, we have this tech triangle between the three sister cities. Thank you.
I think I got everybody except my trip report. Councilor Rocha already described the trip to Los Angeles, which we had to cut a little bit short to get back for the county meeting. It is always interesting to go see how other cities are working on or have solved problems that we face. The problems tend to be pretty common across the big cities, but the solutions can sometimes be very creative, and it's helpful to get out of the city just for a day or two and think differently about our problems. Sometimes we get some pretty good solutions. So I think that's it on the trip report. No action to be taken. Item 2.12 would be the other item on the agenda. I request that be pulled because we need to change the effective date on the city clerk compensation package from October 22nd to October 27th so that we coincide with the appropriate pay period. With that, I'd recommend approval. Motion is to approve 2.12. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion is approved. That concludes the consent calendar. Item 3.1 is next. That's the report of the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to also comment very briefly on the Dublin trip. We will be contributing to Councilmember KALRA's written report, but I would like to thank you for the opportunity to participate in this trip. This is only the second time I've traveled internationally in 44 years, so it clearly isn't a habit. But each of the two times I have been struck by just how important it is for San Jose to see itself as a global player. We are highly regarded overseas as the capital of Silicon Valley, and I think sometimes we underestimate that fact. I do believe it's an important part of our work to build and foster relationships internationally that are value added for our community. Our budget director, Jennifer McGuire, was able to participate. She very seldom, if ever, travels, and I think walked away with a renewed appreciation for the leadership that she has provided to our city through our period of austerity, in particular as she compared notes with the finance director for Dublin. And in the same vein, Carrie Romanow, our environmental services director, attended, and she was able to share her extensive knowledge with colleagues and businesses that she was able to engage with on the trip, and I know has brought back contacts that will be very valuable to her and the city. And then just finally, a great thanks to Joe Hedges. All of you have commented on the great job he did. Joe has been our protocol officer in addition to other duties for many, many years, and he has been a common thread and link in all of our relationships. So again, thank you for the opportunity to participate on this trip.
Next item is 3.3, terms of agreement with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 332.
Mayor, we have no presentation. I would just like to take a quick moment to thank the bargaining teams who got us to agreement on the side of IBEW, the electrical workers, Dan Rodriguez, Frank Cresco, Joe Beckham, Long Vu, and Rich Sigona. And on the city side, Jennifer Chambry, Kevin O'Connor, Ron Nichols, and Rob Perrin. We're very much appreciative of the efforts of the IBEW team to reach this tentative agreement, and we're confident that we will continue to work effectively and collaboratively with them as we have in the past, and we do recommend approval.
Councilor Liccardo.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank both negotiating teams, particularly members from the IBEW. I know that we have seen our employees take significant pay cuts to continue to serve in this city, and significant cuts in pensions. and we would all like to be able to restore their compensation much more quickly than we're able to, and I'm grateful that folks are understanding of the very difficult fiscal challenges we face as we continue to try to get our employees back to where I think we all agree they ought to be. So I just want to thank both teams for working well and collaborating in this effort.
Vice Mayor? Motion is to approve. Mr. Wall, you want to speak on the motion?
Yes, sir. I'm always wondering how council members can say that they want to restore benefits when we look at the track record of your spending on items that are relatively no value. What I mean by no value in the sense that you support, let's say, the Mexican Heritage Plaza at $500,000 a year. Without that support, that project would fail because there's no real participation financially from the people that use it. A 2% increase for city employees is really very shameful of you because of how you spend money and how you really don't account for it. Now, with reference to the electrical workers, Mr. Mayor, as you know, you've spent millions of dollars out at the Water Pollution Control Plant on hiring outside contractors for industrial electricians and electrical instrumentation technicians. So I think you should reassign your payout policies to favor much needed employees so San Jose doesn't become just a regional training facility like the police department has become. And now we're going to be seeing our electrical workers basically being treated the same way. Now the sick leave payout, current employees hired on or before September 29th, 2012, should be reviewed. This is a very convoluted formula that all employees are being basically forced to have imposed upon them. In my own personal opinion, I think that this will lead to 100% sick leave usage versus people saving their sick leave for payouts, such as our dutiful and honorable city manager, whom you all gave several hundred hours of sick leave to upon her reinstatement as city manager. So there's a lot of contradictory activities going on by the council members with reference to maintaining a very good and well-paid and benefited city service. And you should reflect on your activities. Thank you.
That concludes public testimony. We have a motion to approve on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. Our next item is 4.1, amendment to the City of San Jose signed ordinance. I believe we'll have a staff presentation. This is the latest installment in a series of changes that we've been making to our sign code. Laurel Porvetti will take us through this.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Laurel Porvetti, Assistant Director for Planning, Building, Code Enforcement. As the mayor said, we've been working on a series of sign code changes, and what we are bringing for you today continues our theme of promoting economic development by putting wise sign regulations in place. As with all of our sign code changes, we've had extensive community meetings with the business community as well as our residential community, and all of that is discussed in our written staff report. Today, there are a series of changes for your consideration. The first set pertain to large shopping centers of 500,000 square feet or larger and that are outside of a special sign zone. So on the slide, you'll see examples of such centers. These include Valley Fair, Westgate, and Eastridge. Today, what we're trying to address is an unusual phenomenon where there might be a second story tenant within a large shopping center that has no direct entryway from the ground floor. We have this situation in a couple of our centers. These are fairly large tenants of a square footage of at least 60,000 square feet, and we want to provide the opportunity for them to have signage outside of the shopping center building. So staff is proposing a 100 square foot sign for a second story tenant, and they would be able to have 2 such signs. We certainly respect the recommendation coming from several of our council members for that sign area to increase to 120 square feet. So there is a slight error in the slide that says 200 square feet. That's intended to be 120 square feet to recognize the recommendation that was contained in the council memo. The maximum number of such second-story signs would be 2, and then the largest size would be either 100 or 120, whichever the council prefers. The graphic at the lower part of the slide essentially shows you what the cumulative total of all the signage might be on a building face within such a center, just so you understand that there are already allowed signs for the tenants that have direct entryways. We've already permitted the larger entryway signs, and now we're asking for a second-story sign addition. In addition, we're looking at the corners of our large shopping centers. Oftentimes we have pad buildings, what are called pad buildings, at the major intersection of 2 streets, and there's an interest in allowing some additional attached signage in those circumstances. So again, working with the business community and our residents, we've come up with what we believe are appropriate sign regulations to allow for the prominence of the shopping center to be identified at such public streets. In addition, and here's an example of what that would look like just in comparison to that earlier diagram. So we would allow what's known as a corner sign for that prominent shopping center at the corner of 2 intersections. It would need to be above the roof line of the building and preferably architecturally integrated into the building itself. So that way the sign is part of the building structure itself. This ordinance also handles a couple of other items. One is to allow some additional flexibility for the placement of signs in our historic buildings. Of course, we're trying to maintain the unique character of San Jose and our historic structures, and so by having a little bit more flexibility for how we can place signs in our historic buildings, we're hoping that we can provide more viable business opportunities for those historic resources. And then we are also proposing a deletion for a requirement for a master sign program with the ordinance. We did submit a supplemental report to you to recognize that we will be bringing back to you some additional changes to our sign code at a later date. We were hopeful that we would be able to bring them forward as part of this package, but we need some additional time to work with our city attorney's office and do some additional internal review, and that pertains to non-commercial speech, commercial speech, et cetera, and we'll be bringing those back to you perhaps before the holiday season. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Councilmember KALRA.
Thank you, Mayor. And in Councilmember Constant's absence, I'd just like to speak to the memo that Councilmember Constant, myself, Councilmember Oliverio, and Councilmember CAMIS signed on to that Pete wrote. It's a very, as Laurel mentioned, it's a small suggestion that I think will apply to very few establishments in our city, but I think it's still helpful to give some flexibility to the shopping centers and some of the owners. And at the end of the day, it's about allowing our businesses to help market themselves in a way that's most flexible to them. I still think that even with our new sign ordinance, which I know that the planning department worked so hard on, and there were a lot of stakeholders that were part of it, and I'm glad Joe is going to be able to leave knowing that that he had this pretty big responsibility that he can check off. I still think that we have a sign ordinance that is measured, that's not over the top. There are a lot of other jurisdictions that goes a little bit too far. I think that we have good balance between consideration of impacts on the neighborhoods and light and size. It's not too gaudy. We're not making Times Square around every corner, but at the same time, I think we're allowing our businesses that invest in San Jose to be able to market themselves effectively. The memo allows for just a little bit more flexibility in doing that. And so with that, I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum, which also accepts the staff recommendations.
Councilmember Liccardo.
Thanks, Mayor. I just had one question, Laurel. With regard to the shopping centers that you've identified, you can say for the most part, those are shopping centers that are surrounded by a sea of parking. Nobody's stuck looking at the sign right out of their bedroom window. Why do we have any restrictions at all? Why don't we simply allow stores to be able to put up an attached sign that fits within the footprint of their building without any restriction? I mean, these are key sales tax drivers in our city. And I know the illumination issue is a separate one, environmental impacts on riparian corridors and so forth, but just with regard to the size of signs, why don't we simply say, hey, let's avoid the challenge of the bureaucracy and everything else and tell folks, if it fits on your building, go ahead and put it up. If it's in one of these large centers, it's surrounded by parking.
Thank you for the question. The whole purpose of having sign regulations is to balance the need to advertise and identify what businesses are in a particular area with making sure that we don't have too much visual clutter. So it is a balancing act. And so what we've tried to do is identify the correct placement. We can't regulate the message or the words on the sign, but we can regulate how tall the sign is, its sign area, and then the placement on the building. I think San Jose has come a long way in creating more flexibility for signage in a whole variety of circumstances, not just for large shopping centers, but certainly downtown and other key commercial areas. It's definitely a work in progress, so I think there'll be opportunities if the council would like more flexibility to consider that in the future. But I think if we didn't have a sign code, then it would just be open season and it would be very hard to pull back. I don't know if our city attorney wants to add anything further, but I think we're trying to keep that balance so that we can.
And let me clarify. My suggestion in the question wasn't to eliminate the sign code. It was really with regard to a specific context of businesses.
I didn't take it that way.
Yeah.
I think the context was huge parking areas surrounding a shopping center.
Yeah.
But I think to Laurel's point, I mean, historically, you really try to balance the clutter effect and with some kind of reasonable regulation. This is greatly more liberal than what we used to have. To throw out everything, I think we'd want to come back. It's at the end of the day a policy call, but either greater liberalize or throw them out would be something we probably should address if the council wants us to.
Yeah, understood. I guess I appreciate the direction that staff has gone here. Obviously, we're trying to reduce restrictions on businesses here. And I really do think this is a unique circumstance, unlike a lot of signage where we know there are direct impacts in residential areas. It seems to me we've got a master lease relationship usually with a landlord that wants to avoid probably whatever visual clutter we might think would exist. And whoever's running that shopping mall probably has a better sense about what is clutter and what's not than we will. And so it seems to me in those circumstances where you've got these centers that are clearly commercial and clearly commercial districts with lots of parking all around them, you should just let each landlord figure out for themselves what's an appropriate visual display and what's not, and make it a little easier for particularly a lot of the big box retailers who provide us a lot of jobs and a lot of tax revenue to come to the city.
I would just add, and I think that's something certainly we could consider as we continue on with the sign code. I think we also want to make sure that we are incenting the kind of urban form that we're hoping San Jose will be moving towards. So I think as we look at where we want to provide flexibility, perhaps it could match the urban form of bringing the buildings closer to the street and not accidentally rewarding the perpetuation of the large sea of parking.
Vice Mayor Nguyen.
Thank you. And I just wanted to thank staff for the direction. Obviously, this is something that this council in particular has really encouraged staff to look at for a long time now. And I also wanted to thank Councilmember KANSEN, who's not here, but also my colleagues for their memo and for the recommendation. If Bob Key was here, he would tell you that signage encourage commerce, and commerce help to increase revenue. And obviously, that's what we want to do here in the city of San Jose, to increase as much revenue as possible. So any flexibility that we have toward encouraging more signage in our city, in particular in commercial areas, would be something that I'm happy to support. And so I'm very happy to support the motion on the floor. And I hope that as we move along here, that we actually take Councilmember Liccardo's suggestions into considerations and put less restrictions on signage and more flexibility in terms of encouraging more signage in our city.
Councilmember Herrera.
Yes, I want to add in congratulating staff on this, and obviously it's been a work in progress and continuing to bring forward modifications in the sign ordinance. I signed on to memos back in April on this, and all of this council, as Vice Mayor just pointed out, have been supportive of moving forward on this. And I'm proud of what we're doing because I think we are striking the right balance, because we don't want to see, in the old days where we had billboards and clutter and not using signage, using our authority to govern how signage goes up in the right way to direct how we really want our city to develop. So I think we're doing the right things and encouraging business, but not creating unnecessary blight, visual blight for our neighborhoods or places we don't want to see it. Thank you.
Councilmember Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. So to continue along Councilmember Liccardo's comments, is there any way that we could provide a little bit more discretion for the director to be able to analyze a particular situation in a shopping center where just visually you look at it and say, you know what, to the letter of the ordinance, the sign ordinance doesn't work for you, but in reality, we probably could, do a little bit more for a business. And I'll give you an example. The shopping center at Story and White, the Mi Pueblo Shopping Center, there's a corner building, about 35,000 square feet, used to have Big Lots in there. Big Lots couldn't make it because folks didn't see the signs off the street. There's a new business that wants to come in, Didi's, and they're restricted to having a small sign when their space actually should allow them to have a larger sign. And so if you go back on a couple of slides where you showed the corner stores. Yeah, the corner signs. So the corner signs, is that only for the corner of a street? Because, I mean, if you look at that shopping center, that is a corner lot, but it's in reverse. I just think that, when we've got businesses that are trying to make it, that are trying to invest, Didi's will provide a lot of revenue to our city in terms of sales tax revenue, and we're making it harder for them. And then, it's also hard to accept, having restrictions like this when you drive down the street and you've got a number of strip malls that have banners. I mean, I can't count the number of stores down Story Road that have been open for more than 2 years, but it's still their grand opening, And so, I mean, we've got to do something that's going to make sense for us.
I think we're hearing loud and clear from several of you that you'd like some additional thought about liberalizing our sign code. I know our permit center would love to have some additional discretion, but clearly we would need to work with the city attorney's office to identify at least what those parameters would be, and we'll have to bring that back for your consideration.
That's the best way to put it, because a lot of the criteria needs to be objective, and to give a lot of discretion where you have what is otherwise a First Amendment activity always runs into a problem. So, let us work with staff. And, I think, as you know, because you've been seeing this for the last few years with sign code amendments coming back, this is a work in progress, and we're constantly tweaking it.
Don't we have something of a model that we have used that might be applicable here? I'm trying to think of what we call it at Santana Row. But there's a lot of signage there that we just don't get involved in. We said, it's yours, you handle it. There's a special term that we use for that. I've forgotten what it is.
Yeah, Santana Row has its own sign program, and we've had to work to modify that sign program over time to address their emerging needs as well. But we can take a look at some different options based on this conversation and the interest of the council to see about some more flexibility. It will be a balancing act. and we would certainly also be interested in the comments of our businesses as well as residents.
I have one request to speak on this. I'll take that now. Mr. Wall.
I'd like to thank the director and assistant director of PBCE for all their work on this. I'd imagine this in the habitat plan is why the director's retiring at the end of the year. One item about the signs that hasn't been addressed is the issue of updating existing billboard signs into the jumbotrons, these really nice LCD television sets that you can charge advertising by the second. And I don't understand why this has not been addressed. Also, the ability for existing billboard signs to be able to rotate, especially on an angle. The ones in my neighborhood, you could easily pitch them up for incoming aircraft at certain time of the night. They have excellent view from the airplanes because I've seen it myself. But the issue of these programmable signs should be applicable to existing billboard signs, because the billboard signs are there. These owners aren't going to ever surrender them. You can't eminent domain them. So why not allow the upgrade and create even more revenue from these structures that will be there forever? Thank you.
That concludes public testimony. We have a motion to approve the recommendation with the modification Councilor KALRA discussed in the memorandum. I just want to thank the staff for all the work. Sign code is a big, unwieldy ordinance, and it takes a lot of work to change the parts because we also have to implement it day in and day out while we're trying to change it. So it takes a lot of staff work to do that. And I know people spend a lot of time to get it this year, and we appreciate it. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion is approved. Our next item, 4.2, the Envision San Jose 2040 Annual Report. The first annual report since we adopted the 2040 plan a few years ago. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe Harvardell and Laurel Prevetti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few comments, and Laurel's going to kind of walk through our discussion about the memo. I think the first and foremost thing to remember about the Envision 2040 General Plan is that it is very focused on employment. There was a very deliberate decision by the community, by the council in adopting the Envision San Jose General Plan that we needed to go through and change the direction that we were on. And I think in looking at what has occurred over the last 2 years, we have stopped the trend of industrial conversions to residential. The one request we had has been asked to be withdrawn. That we have stopped tearing down houses in established neighborhoods and putting up what I call the pink stucco townhouses in the middle of established neighborhoods that really were tearing those neighborhoods apart. We are focused very much about building the right thing in the right place at the right time. We are extremely open for business, for employment. There's a question or murmurs that go on is that, oh, there's a moratorium in San Jose for development. There is no moratorium in San Jose. We are absolutely open for business, for employment today in all of our employment areas of the city. What we are not open for is to go through and build housing in the wrong places, to go through and build it in the wrong time. That we are very much focused on putting housing in where it is additive to the community and where it is responsible to our economic future as the city. That is a dramatic change. And we have not backed away, though, from our commitment to housing. As noted in our staff report, we have thousands and tens of thousands of housing units available for construction under the current general plan. We have thousands of units under construction at this moment. So we have not shied away from, but what we have shied away from or said no to very emphatically is that the desire of individual property owners to come in and flip their property at their benefit and the expense of the city. And so that is really the foundation of today's discussion, is around that direction and staying that direction. So with that, I'll turn it over to Laurel.
Thank you very much. And that was a great introduction, because this is a plan that builds on the past efforts of our city council to make sure that we're growing in the correct place. The plan reinforces our urban growth boundary, that it is not time to open up Coyote Valley or Almaden Valley, that we have adequate places within the city of San Jose to grow. The report is organized around 12 major strategies that really identify the outcomes for our community. They include destination downtown, community-based planning, streetscapes for people, and the list goes on. So really what we're trying to do is look at our city and our general plan as an integrated whole. And this afternoon, we just want to highlight a couple of the outcomes in terms of where we are so far in implementing our general plan. As Joe mentioned, we are definitely open for business. Since the adoption of the general plan, we've approved and issued building permits for over 5,000 housing units. That's a very robust number. Most of that is within all of the planned growth areas that are served by transit, including downtown, North San Jose. In addition, we've now issued permits for 1.7 million square feet of commercial and industrial development. So our city is doing very well. The focused growth strategy is working. 85% of that growth is within the planned growth areas. And all of the other areas are within our urban service area. Our council for many different generations have been concerned about what we call a jobs housing balance. That is, how are we doing in terms of bringing jobs to our city and then having employed residents within San Jose. We are the largest city within our country where we export workers. That is, people live here, but they work somewhere else. And since 2010, we actually decreased our jobs housing ratio from 0.88 down to 0.85 in 2012. So we're not quite making the progress that we would like to see. We're hoping to get at least to 1 and hopefully over 1 with the new 2040 general plan. In contrast, some of our colleague cities here in Silicon Valley are doing very well, and their jobs housing balance are very, very high, over 3%. So clearly there's room for more job growth here in San Jose, and it just really speaks to Joe's earlier point about staying vigilant, about putting the jobs in the right place. Another strategy for our new general plan is urban villages, and we'll be talking more about urban villages with you in November. We're hoping to set a study session with you on November 12th. And really talk about how do we implement our urban villages and make them come alive with both jobs and housing. We're really looking at completing our neighborhoods. And on Monday at the CED committee, we'll be having a conversation describing more fully the attributes and physical characteristics of our urban villages in terms of parks, jobs, housing, making sure that we're really completing our neighborhoods with the right land uses in the right places. This strategy is very much linked to another major strategy, which is streetscapes for people. We have a very ambitious mode shift goal to change the way people move around our city, from going from driving alone to actually using transit and bicycling and walking more. So we would like to shift that and reduce vehicle miles traveled by 40% by 2040. It's a very high bar, but we think we can get there. And again, through your budget actions and acceptance of grant monies, et cetera, we've actually installed miles of bike lanes, and we're working towards creating those transportation choices within San Jose. Having a fiscally strong city is another one of our goals, and clearly the delicate balancing act that all of you do through our annual budget process shows that the careful weighing of priorities that we have to deal with. We only have 15% of our land area that's designated for job-generating land, so that's very precious to us, and making sure that we're able to drive the jobs in those locations will help us meet our fiscal needs into the future. We do want to talk just a little bit about the amendments that are before you this fall. All of them essentially are consistent with the general plan, those that are actually moving forward. You'll have a chance to consider those primarily now on the 19th of November. One of the amendments on Race Street that you'll consider tonight did necessitate the reallocation, or will necessitate, if approved, the reallocation of 10 housing units from the nearby West San Carlos urban village to the proposed development site. And that is a new way of handling housing growth. In the old days, we would be able to add housing capacity and sky was the limit. Now we have a cap on how much housing we're planning. We're planning for 120,000 new homes within San Jose, more than any other jurisdiction, certainly in Northern California. But we want to maintain that balance. And so in order to do so, we need to carefully balance where we add housing and where we remove it. So with the West End, with the Race Street Amendment, we do have to make that reallocation, and we feel that that is perfectly doable. West San Carlos still has plenty of housing units, so that urban village will be fine. The written report identifies a variety of metrics. We're looking at creating consistent metrics so that way each year when we come back to you, you can see the progress year in, year out. We're still looking for data sources that will be reliable year in and year out. And we're also hoping to drive these performance metrics down deeper at another level of geography so that way you can see how is a particular urban village performing and how does that really add up to where the city as a whole is going. So there's definitely some more work to do, but we felt it was really important before you considered any amendments to the general plan that you saw the overall picture of how San Jose is performing. And with that, we do have 3 recommendations for your consideration. First is to accept this annual report on the general plan. Second is to continue the policy direction of employment first and great places. We've come a long way and we'd like to continue that progress. And third, to continue the planning and implementation of village efforts. And again, the discussion that we will be having at the committee on Monday and with all of you at a study session in November will continue that effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you, staff. This is the first of these annual reviews looking at the progress, and it's always interesting to look back a little bit to what we've been trying to do and how we're doing. And although this isn't really a general plan level issue, I want to congratulate our OED staff, our DOT staff, Councilmember LICCARDO, for the efforts to attract Apogee from Palo Alto to 10 Almaden, 40,000 square feet, with a couple hundred or so employees moving into San Jose. That's the very fine level implementation work that ultimately flows out of a general plan. And so that's good news, along with a lot of other things that are happening in our community. But if we look back over the last few years, I just want to go back to a couple of things the staff said. If you look at the jobs per employed resident, our goal is 1.3, and we're losing ground on that goal compared to the other cities in the county that are gaining ground and are increasing their ratio of jobs per employed resident. And it's not just a philosophical thing, it is an economic thing as well. So if you look at the cities to the north and west of us, they range, our jobs employed resident ratio is 0.85, down from 0.88. Sunnyvale is 1.23, Santa Clara 1.84, Mountain View 1.64, Palo Alto 3.1. Now, that's a huge range in jobs per employed resident. More important to me, and I know all my council colleagues, is the difference in the per capita revenues at the city level, because this is not just an academic exercise, there's real money involved here. So San Jose has about $1,000 per capita revenues for the city. So $1,000, million people, it's $1 billion in revenues in rough terms. Mountain View and Santa Clara have $200 on average more than we do. At 1 million people, that's $200 million delta. Sunnyvale has got about $800 per capita more revenue than we do. And Palo Alto has $1,200 per capita more revenue than we do. So yes, they're wealthy cities, and we're happy for them to be wealthy. We just like a little more of our share, and our share means at least getting to a 1-to-1 ratio of jobs per employed resident. And that's why that's so prominent in the general plan. Now, Councilmember LICCARDO, who chaired the committee, and Councilmember Oliverio, who served on it, can probably give you much more detail than I about what the task force was intent upon, but I know they were very focused on trying to close that gap, trying to get a better ratio of jobs to residents, trying to get the city fiscally strong, and that is why we have a general plan that's designed the way it is and why the city council approved it. And when you look at our city, we're anticipating all these revenues coming out of a jobs and employment lands, but they're only 15% of the land mass of the city. So we're talking about a very small area, which is why conversion is such an important topic. We have high aspirations for revenues and jobs, and a small amount of land to do that. In fact, our population is still outgrowing our jobs production. We have roughly 55% of the county's residents, but only 40% of the jobs. And we'd like to change that. We're working hard. We've got a great economic development strategy, a great economic development team. But at the policy level, the council has to hold the line on conversions, or else we lose the opportunity to catch up. And I'm looking back over a 30-year history, looking at the planning efforts that we've had in the city, and realizing that our plans have been very successful at converting employment lands to housing. They weren't designed that way, they weren't intended that way, but that has in fact been the case. Midtown and Japantown plans, we managed to convert 100 acres to residential. The Berryessa Evergreen Swap, we managed to convert 300 acres to residential. And in North San Jose, we've converted 300 acres to residential. And we have very few jobs in Midtown, Japantown, or Evergreen, and even in North San Jose, as a result of all the work that we've done at the planning level. So we have to be very cautious about not allowing this plan, in particular the urban villages, to be the reason to convert employment lands to residential lands. There are times and places when that'll be appropriate as part of the village planning process, but we can't allow the village plans to become kind of a Trojan horse to just continue along the path of converting employment lands to residential lands. And I'm a little bit concerned because I've heard from developers and property owners who have interests in our village plan areas, and they all think it's a great idea to convert employment to housing. I don't think I've talked yet to a single developer who is anxious to come in and put in high-density employment. That's not what's driving it. The economy is not pushing that way, but they are very interested in converting employment lands to residential. So today is our first opportunity, I think, after having some experience with our general plan, for us to make a policy decision to support the underlying principles of our general plan, the jobs first principles of our general plan. And that's why I've suggested that we ought to take a stand and just say we're not quite sure what urban villages are going to be, but we know they should not be a vehicle for converting employment lands to residential, because that would be inconsistent with what we've said we want to do, and certainly inconsistent with getting the jobs housing balance that we want. And I can give you 3 examples. Now that I've been here 14 years, I have my own experience that I can draw upon. 3 examples. Brocade, the At First project on North First Street, would have been a housing project if we had said yes to a residential. If we'd said, yeah, that would be a good place to convert, it would have been converted. I had that conversation with the CEO, and they decided, okay, the city doesn't want to convert it to residential, we'll do something else with it, and now we have Brocade and the At First project. I had similar conversations with developers of the projects that now have a Lowe's on it and a Costco on it in my old council district. Both of those sites, you can make excellent arguments. They should have been converted to housing, but we as a city said no, and now we have a Lowe's and a Costco. And each of those cases, if we had listened to the arguments, we would have converted to residential, it would have been built out, and we would not have gotten the jobs. So that's why it's an important issue for us to continue to affirm our basic objective with our general plan is to try to get that balance. Because ultimately we're trying to serve our residents, we're trying to provide services, and we need the revenues to do that. I would like to add one item to the specific recommendations, that we just go ahead and say November 12th, we're going to have a study session on urban villages. Staff has mentioned it. We haven't actually set the date. I think we can just do that today, say we'll have the study session on urban villages. That would be a week prior to the general plan hearing date that we've set. And so I would ask that that be included in the motion for whatever it is we're going to do here today. And so with that, I'd like to recognize Vice Mayor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor. And I concur with many of the things that you've said. Back in 2007, most of us on this council signed on a policy to preserve, it's called the Preservation of Employment Lands, and it was unanimously passed by this council, and we continue to strive in that direction. And we all know that the city of San Jose continues to be an excellent location for investment. It's our proximity to the airport, access to major highways and rail infrastructure, and we have an abundant supply of land that allow for the city to grow in leaps and bounds over the years. Today, San Jose is home to almost 1 million residents with over 29,000 businesses and 371 jobs in retail, construction, healthcare, manufacturing, technology, and a range of other sectors. And almost 50% of our residents work here in Santa Clara County. Now, I've always been a big proponent of housing, especially affordable housing. But people living in new housing developments also need places to work. So employment and housing must be balanced. And part of our job on this council is to promote and sustain a strong and competitive regional economy. I think it's our responsibility to protect the diverse group of industrial and employment lands throughout our city that or will continue to provide good jobs for our residents. The value of large public and private investment in these lands will be lost permanently if we convert these employment lands to residential use. So retaining and supporting our existing employment lands is critical to the city's economic base. The city has recognized this challenge, and that's why we passed that Preservation of Employment Lands policy back in 2007, which gives direction to protect employment lands and incentives to bolster the economic base. I think that the future economic and social health of our city depends on our residents having access to decent jobs and the quality of life. I think that it's critical that we affirm our language and commitment to preserving this employment land, because as you can see, when we have an item tonight from an applicant who wants to convert a piece of employment land into residential use, and because we are so firm with our commitment to retain that employment land, they eventually withdraw the application. So this is the kind of commitment and affirmations that we need to continue to push and move forward as we continue to retain employment lands for just that employment. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the mayor's memo that I co-signed along with council members LICCARDO and Herrera, and also with the additions that we set a November 12th study session on urban villages. Second. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Councilmember LICCARDO.
Thanks, Mayor. A few questions about that jobs to employed residents number. I know that's a ratio we've been laser focused on, certainly through 4 years of General Plan Task Force. And now we see the number, and of course, we'd all like to see it rising, and we see it dropping. What I'm curious about is how we got to 0.88 to begin with, because I recall during the early days of the General Plan Task Force, we were talking about a 0.84 ratio. And then we went through what I consider to be a pretty bad spell we call the Great Recession. And somehow or another, the ratio went from 0.84 to 0.88 when our unemployment rate shot through the roof into 2010. How did it rise through that time?
I don't think it really rose. I think what happened was we changed our data sources. In the past, we used to rely on ABAG numbers, the Association of Bay Area Governments, for their information around employed residents and housing. They stopped doing a lot of the old modeling, and so we then went to the U.S. Census Bureau, their American Community Survey, and what we should probably do is go back, as many years as we can with the ACS, so that way we have a consistent benchmark of where were we really when we started the general plan update. So I think your point is well taken. And that's why, as we look at metrics, we need to make sure that we find good data and then stay with a particular methodology.
Thank you, Laurel. I appreciate that, because I was guessing there might be some noise in the data somewhere, and I think we found it. It seems to me that this ratio is terribly important, certainly, but how and where the housing exists is also critically important. And I know we tend to use this as a benchmark or a proxy for how we think we will be doing fiscally. But I think we know, for instance, high-rise housing in the downtown is a net fiscal positive or very close to it. And the same number of units out in the Almaden Reserve are anything but, right? And so I wonder at some point whether it makes sense for us to start to talk about what the ratio looks like outside very, very high density housing, which we know is not a drain on our general fund, to try to get a number that gives us better guidance about whether we are helping or hurting our long-term fiscal output.
Right, thank you. I think, and Joe may want to add on to this, but that was one of the reasons why we did a fiscal impact study as part of the general plan update, is that we know, just as you say, not all housing is created equal. It depends on the product type. Is it high-rise or townhome or some other form? And then where is it located? Is it located within the downtown or a place that's served by transit or readily accessible to our police and fire staff, or is it out in the hinterland? So there's a variety of assumptions that we would need to look at to understand the fiscal benefit of one housing type versus another. And clearly, our strategy was chosen deliberately to put the growth in the places that made it more fiscally sound for San Jose. And that's another reason why, we realized we really didn't need to open up Coyote or other outlying areas, because we had enough development potential within the urban portion of the city to make some fiscally sound decisions.
Right.
The only other piece I would add is Laurel mentioned earlier, some of the metrics that we would like to go and be able to use is what's going on in each of these areas, because part of what's also in the general plan is we use the phrase complete neighborhoods. And so that's a function of having housing affordability and job match happening there. So it does no good to keep, all the high-wage jobs in one part of town and all the high-wage workers living in another part of town. As we need to, see if we can blend some of that, because that's the only way we'll get to achieving our vehicle mile reduction goals that we've also established. So there's multiple pieces that are moving all at the same time, and it is a recognition that we do need a wide a diversity of job types in San Jose. We need a diversity of housing types, and we need those scattered throughout the city. So,
right.
It really does get down at the micro level that ultimately I think we need to talk about this.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm just looking forward to next year at this time when we're probably going to have 2,000 units under construction downtown. Does that mean our numbers are going to drop again, even though nobody would say that's a fiscal drain on us? And so I appreciate the fact this is a nuanced issue. Going to page 3, where it recites the number of building permits at the top of the page, by my count, it's almost 8,800 units over the last 2 years we've got building permits for. Do you have any rough estimate of how much of that is in North San Jose?
I'd say over half is up in North San Jose.
Okay.
There is a tremendous amount of activity. It is now moved to Edenvale on the Hitachi property. There's a lot of activity going there, downtown and the area around downtown. But right. By and large, North San Jose, where most of that's happening.
Because, that spigot is turning off. And we've hit our 8,000 cap. And it'll be, I guess, an interesting question to try to understand whether we have enough opportunity sites. I mean, I think we do have the sites. The question is, are we going to get developers to go to those sites in the coming year or two? The other question I had related to the chart, which is really instructive on the top of page 7, recognizing we've got a lot of cities here in this region that are growing very quickly, in employment, and we're adding more housing than all of those cities combined. And I'd venture to guess all of the cities in Santa Clara County combined, beyond our own. It seems to me that we really need a regional solution here. And we're finally getting an opportunity for that kind of regional solution through transportation funding in the form of OBAG grants that are coming down to the VTA. And it seems to me this is probably a good time for us to start conversations with the VTA. Given their goals are trying to get people close to transit and to get jobs near housing, and that matches our goal, where we could start to talk about how OBAG funding might be more strongly linked to the decision-making of individual councils in each of those cities about where they put housing and where they put jobs. And I certainly expect that they'll continue to accept jobs as they come to them, but the question is, are they going to take the housing that we know needs to be situated close to those jobs? And it would certainly be helpful to know that council members and planning commissioners throughout the valley are at least all on the same page and starting to understand what this is doing in terms of long-run impacts whenever anyone's getting on 85 or 101 or 280 in the morning and looking at a long row of red lights. So I would certainly invite that conversation. I know we've had some conversation at DOT staff level with folks at VTA, but it seems like this is an area where planning staffs could certainly communicate as well, and it may be helpful as you reach across to your colleagues in other cities, because we're not going to fix this by suddenly claiming a hiatus on housing in San Jose, not that we are. I think we recognize it's a regional issue and we need to find a regional solution. And the last thing I'd say is, to some extent we have to eat our own dog food too. We've got a site, I think the mayor mentioned Japantown, which we're converting largely to housing. We're going to approve today a general plan amendment that's going to create a range of 16,000 to 30,000 square feet of retail on a site where we're otherwise putting 600 units of housing. That was an industrial site. It was actually originally a city site, I guess, at some point. And pushing to the high end, it would be important, I think, in terms of preserving jobs. But of course, we know that's going to reduce the fee, the price of the land that the city gets in that negotiation. And just as we expect developers to take a haircut, I think the city needs to recognize it should take a haircut too in those negotiations when we are trying to push a jobs first general plan. And so I look forward to that negotiation as it unfolds this fall. But I just want to put my colleagues on notice that what's good for the goose, i.e. the developers, is also good for the gander. That is us. And we should be willing to take the haircuts as well to push good development and to push jobs where we know we could use them.
Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you. And I was happy to sign on to Mayor Reed's memo to clarify that the urban village plan should not be used as a job employment land converting mechanism. In my district, excuse me, it's well known that we have campus land there. Some of the very precious little campus land left, which could be developed into something that would employ people, would have jobs there. And part of it is that I think we just need to stick with our vision that employment land that we have designated actually can eventually turn into jobs. It doesn't mean that that's going to happen overnight, but it means that we have to work with developers that are here and perhaps reach out to those developers that have yet to discover Silicon Valley, those developers that are working in other cities in the state, in our country, around the world, that are developing areas that include transportation and housing and jobs. And I definitely agree with Councilmember LICCARDO that we need to look at this not as in isolation, not housing in isolation, not jobs in isolation, not transportation in isolation, but together, and hopefully have more opportunity as we move forward to plan communities that include transportation, housing, and jobs in unity, because then there can be some incentives for companies who see a benefit to having jobs near those transportation centers. I was at a leadership group event a couple of months ago, and heard one of the leading companies say that they were not going to put any more jobs unless it was near a rail line. Throughout the world, that is how they will develop new jobs. And so businesses get that they need to have, this transportation aspect is very important where they locate jobs. And I think San Jose has to present that platform so that companies can readily see that we understand and we're going to help provide those jobs that will include transportation. And yes, and we do provide housing. We've certainly provided an enormous amount of housing for the cities located north of us. And we will continue to provide housing, but we need to maintain our land for jobs. But we've seen recently sort of the stirrings of developers wanting to convert. We saw it in District 7, and certainly if that would have happened, they would have been right over there at District 8, knocking on the door. And in Coyote, there was some trade-off for Coyote, which was not apparent to me what that benefit would have been. But we need to hold the line on it, and I think the fact that people did, I wrote an op-ed in the Mercury about it, and other folks weighed in. I'm very happy to see that proposal's been withdrawn. But let us not think that proposal won't come back to a future council, to a new mayor. We have to hold the line, and we have to not only say no to converting land, but we have to offer a vision of how we can get jobs here. And I applaud the efforts of Councilmember LICCARDO and others who are actually talking to companies. I am as well, working with new ideas, innovative ideas that could possibly end up locating in the land in my district. I think we have to roll up our sleeves and do that for the sake of the folks here that are looking for jobs, but also for the future generations that want to live in San Jose, in a thriving place that has opportunity for jobs here. So I'm happy I signed on this, and I look forward to passing this and hearing the comments at our Economic Development Committee, and also at our study session of how we can continue to move forward with this general plan and bring more jobs to San Jose.
Councilor Liccardo?
I just wanted to correct a mistaken attribution of credit. I actually didn't have anything to do with Apogee. I know our OED staff, Kim and Lee, and lots of other folks work with them. I believe Nancy as well.
What about all those you didn't get credit for?
Yeah, for some reason those fish never landed.
I take it back, I'm taking back the credit.
Councilor Rocha.
Thank you, Mayor. I've heard a lot of statements about balance, and I think that was probably what prompted me to submit a memo, and I'm not going to suggest a substitute motion. The purpose of my memo really wasn't that. It was more to bring light to another lens on this issue. The pendulum swings often on many issues up here, and like the mayor, I've had a lot of time working at City Hall, and I've seen the pendulum swing from one end to the other, and I just wanted to caution my colleagues or myself or anyone involved in this issue that going too far on the pendulum sometimes brings that pendulum crashing back the other way just as strong. And I think for me, it was about bringing this issue up and being the one to at least talk about this issue. As far as the conversion issue, I know we've talked about one. Has there been any other applications on file for any conversions other than that one?
That's the new one. I think the one that you mentioned in your memo, Councilman Rocha, the iStar application is an application that the city has been working on for about 4 years now. So we had done an EIR, we're doing a new EIR, and at the time of the adoption of the general plan, we said we would go through and look at that one kind of transitioning. So we will be bringing that forward to council for consideration in early 14, but of new amendments, the only one was the one in District 7. I think everybody else has seen the resolution of the council and the community and the staff to not support conversions.
And that's looking how far back, just to get an understanding of the scale of this issue that we're trying to preclude from and not make sure it doesn't happen. That may not be actually happening, and that's why I'm a little concerned about the text amendment path, so to speak.
So that's going back to the adoption of the Envision plan, so 2 years.
Okay, and even previous to that, I don't recall
Yeah,
many
it
applications
is-
on file either.
I
And I
think
wouldn't
the-
expect you to know that by heart, but it's really extremely rare that we would have seen any of these in the past. however
Probably
many
the last 4 years it really tapered off as the task force really honed in on our direction, and the development community property owners saw that amendments that previously were being approved were being denied by the staff and by the council. I think they saw that it was that direction had changed. So I think it's been probably about a 4-year run that it's really tapered, and then it's gone pretty much to zero.
So this conversion issue really is as important as it is to us. There's not this groundswell of interest in submitting conversions on properties in San Jose, at least that we're seeing. I mean, if anything, the conversions have come from this council in terms of North San Jose, not on the private side.
Well, even the North San Jose were decisions we made effectively 10 years ago, and that they're just now coming to be built. I think
10 years ago, was that the agency when did
for
that?
the
Was
North
it
San
that long
Jose,
ago?
the North San Jose area development
Well,
policy
started.
We really set that path, and that was us working with the council saying, as a policy, where do we want to go? And so that started that momentum for us doing those changes.
So those conversions were generally driven on this side of the dais? in a sense.
I think for the most part, they've been driven by the property owners. So even while we said in North San Jose we were interested or would accommodate housing, it was as mitigation to employment, and that's why we triggered or linked it, phased it. We didn't say that individual properties, but originally we looked at as staff no housing in North San Jose, and that we said was not responsible from a transportation, land use, green, any way you could look at it. We felt we needed that balance piece up there. I think what the concern that you've heard from me in different discussions over the last year, and I think where the mayor was going, is that there is a lot of discussion going on of property owners, developers, now that we are working in certain areas of the city and doing village plans, is so how fast can I build housing? How much employment do I have to provide? So it's still, the conversation is very much centric around building housing, and I think even with the adoption of the general plan, there was still an undertow that expectation in the development community is, well, we'll just go do the village plans, and then once that's done, the city will go out and change the general plan, we'll put zoning on the properties, and we can start building, residential, pretty bad unencumbered again. And we'll let, as long as it's in phase one, we'll go out and go do that. And then what we have said over the last 2 years is we need to go through and still be really careful. While we're going to go put housing into these areas, we need to be very deliberate about how we do that so we achieve our goals, which are employment, building great places, making sure we're getting the right mix of housing that's going in, and we're not just building all of one thing. There's a lot more nuance to it that we need to pay attention to, rather than, I think, some of the lessons from North San Jose where we took a little bit laissez-faire approach to it. Build 8,000 units, and we got 8,000 units, and they're nice-looking units, but I don't say we necessarily built communities.
Let me jump in a statement that the nuance you talked about in different housing types and products, that's, for me, the balance issue, which then leads me to the concern for us memorializing this or the text amendment changes that are being suggested. So that's how I'm trying to reconcile that statement with this action, and that, for me, is where I'm lost on. I mean, there's not a lot of conversion applications coming through. General plans pretty clearly states jobs first. So, and then you just talk about the balance that we should be considering in terms of that. But yet we then make a statement that's so stringent that something such as the Hitachi project that's referenced in here, for me, that wouldn't qualify as a village plan, would it?
Actually, Hitachi is a village. It's one of our adopted villages.
But wouldn't it have
And so what you'll hear from me next year, or my successor, is that when we did the original Hitachi plan, we actually thought it included the iStar property in that master planning effort. The property owner at that time didn't want to play, so we did our work on the other side of the property line. but we had always looked at that whole area being a village. When we went through and general plan the area, we just did the Hitachi site because, again, it was still showing as industrial.
So those density levels and the product type, the housing type, that's what we expect to see in the remaining village plans?
Yeah, I think as you'll go through it, and what you see on Hitachi is it is 4-story over one. It has single family, small lot single family. It's got townhouse. It's got a wide variety of housing types, but it is extremely dense. When you go through and look at the amount of housing, the amount of jobs, the amount of retail, and this of what we put that into, it's really compact. And while it isn't, a quintessential New England village, you think of with the little white picket fences and things, it does achieve our goals about how to go through and put workforce and residents in a very attractive environment, a very pedestrian, walkable, biking type environment with a great transit access. So we've accomplished all that.
So that's good to hear. I guess I'm a little still confused that that amount of land, and as we've identified the other village plans, that amount of just vacant land that's already assembled and the ability to do the type of housing products that you're talking about, if that's what it's going to look like, and I think that's a great approach, I'm just not convinced that the village centers we've identified are going to be assembled and have that much available land to do the type of development that we're talking about in Hitachi. I just don't, I hope so, but I'm not, again, I've been around this for a little while, as you have, and that type of opportunity is pretty few and far between, but yet we're hanging our hat on that. That's what these are all going to look like. So that's why I'm questioning that's what our village plans are going to look like. Can't wait to see you in 20 years when you're retired on the beach in Hawaii and say, I haven't seen one of those look like that yet, Joe. So that's what I'm questioning here.
No, and that's, as we talked about Hitachi in the past and whether a gas station should be in there or not, is that there are a lot of different characters to transit-focused, complete neighborhoods. And that how we go through and kind of weave those into the existing neighborhoods is going to look very different at Hitachi. It's going to look very different as you get to Blossom Hill and Snell, as you get to Oak Ridge, as you then work your way into downtown and North San Jose, because the context is different on every one of those. Some of these villages, areas, may be nothing more than adding another 50,000 feet of retail and 100 housing units. Those scales are very small. Once like Hitachi, it's 200 acres. And so, actually maybe bigger than that, is that they are very large sites that have 3 million square feet of employment in them, so they are very diverse. So it is a wide spectrum that goes on, and that's the piece of us. I think we've got to do a better job of explaining to the community and for the council is what do those prototypes look like. In New Urbanism, they call it the transect of kind of what that cross-section of, that different intensity levels that we need to give some better examples. I was just in D.C. 2 weeks ago, the end of the Red Line, and it was an area that up until 5 years ago was nothing but large parking lots of 1950s shopping centers. Today it has 4-story and 5-story office buildings. It's ground floor retail, residential built on top of it. It has incubator type space built into it for business, county government center, open spaces. They've created out of 1950s parking lots at the end of the line of the metro what we want to do. That's our flea market, is those kinds of opportunities. We have those around the city. We just need to go through and recognize it is complicated. It took them a couple of years of 2 developers that controlled most of that to kind of figure out how to get the pieces going, and then others are now joining in. But it is really complicated work to kind of make that all happen.
So we could, I think this sounds like a retirement party over wine conversation if we keep going on. I'm sure my colleagues are probably asking me to move along here. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let me jump into just some more direct policy questions here. And going back to the I-STAR item, the extraordinary public benefit exemption that exists in that industrial conversion policy, I don't remember it by heart. With this new text amendment, would that still stand or exist? So I understand which policy lays on which policy?
Yeah. So when we did the employment land framework, it had kind of the extraordinary benefit, and that really got de-emphasized out as we moved that policy forward. We have in the general plan the signature project, which is affectionately known as the next Santana Row. is how the task force talked about it, where you have a project that is providing the employment goals, the open space, the residential, the mix of types of employment and residential, that is a category that allows people to move faster than a village plan. I think what you will see coming forward with iStar is that we're not coming under the signature project, though I think it actually could fit under that too, just of what's going on with sales tax generation, employment, affordable housing, regular housing, open space, and integrated with the adjoining employment and transit, plus of how we're working to go through one of our adopted goals is to bring Major League Baseball and Major League Soccer to San Jose in stadiums. So we have broken ground on the Earthquake Stadium. We're looking at how to go through and put additional monies through the developer of how to put additional monies into that stadium. And so whether you call it extraordinary benefit or not, that there is an expectation that there would be significant monies in the tens of millions of dollars moving into the stadium to make it world-class. So that piece is moving forward. But from a land use standpoint is how we've looked at it as staff. Does it make sense from a land use standpoint not go write a check and avoid problems?
I guess to get to the end of the question is, would that, a development such as that, under this new scenario, could we do something like that? And I guess your answer is yes. For a certain price, we can be bought, so to speak. And that's fine, but I think that's my point at the end of the day, is allowing us some flexibility or balance, or the policy decision makers up here, the opportunity to at least have that discussion. If we preclude ourselves from that discussion, that's what I'm concerned about.
No, and that's the discussion that we really want to have as a part of the study session in November, is what are the financial tools that are available to develop in these development areas, and what are the things that we're going to need to have in our arsenal to make economic development happen. And you've heard from me say that there is a potential that allowing some amount of residential to front load employment may make sense in certain circumstances if it's allowing us to achieve our goals. And I think that's kind of that balancing point, is do we go through and how to go through and have that conversation and decide where do we want to go with that, do we, without opening up the floodgates. And I think that is the real concern the mayor has. And I have some concerns about that, is, as we saw with the proposals in District 7, essentially their writing the check was to give land in Coyote Valley. That really didn't resonate, I think, at any level. But you could see that somebody would say, is it worth $100,000 a doorknob for a residential unit, or is it $200,000? At what point would you go through and say, yeah, that's a great deal? And that is a really slippery slope, and I think that's why the mayor has rightly raised that concern, is that we should not lead people on that they can just write a check and solve their problem and give that problem to us. That is a really important policy discussion we need to have.
Let me jump in there and then be the advocate for the homeless or the affordable housing issue. And to that point, if not having the flexibility to make any policy decisions along that line, if there's an opportunity for us to get some affordable housing built, which is not within our power currently, and we're, as we've mentioned out loud, many folks on this dais, how committed we are to the homelessness issue and the affordable housing issue, not being able to front load the word that you used, and allow residential to go first for the opportunity to maybe do some affordable housing, which is a huge need in this city, in this region. Again, it leads me to the same place where I keep starting and finishing, is I'm concerned about the lack of flexibility for at least the discussion to happen. The necessity for the text amendments, is it there, or do you feel the general plan stands strong enough as it is?
I think the general plan has a tremendous foundation there that says what we're about. If there is a sign of weakness that we need to go through and buttress, I will go through and absolutely support putting some more clarification in the plan.
Which goes to the
I don't
question
know necessarily
I made earlier, how many applications on file that we're trying to...
So I think the other piece in the mayor's memo is that when we come back for the 2014 annual review cycle, is we should consider this of adding some more strength around our employment goals. Clearly, before that happens, we're going to have the study session on the 19th about financing tools and some discussions around that. And if the council wants to pursue that, you absolutely have the ability to, decide where you want to go. But I think where the mayor put a stake in the ground is our starting point should be, when in doubt, make it stronger. And I guess I'd have to, I respect that, because that is a fundamental goal about the plan.
I don't know. I understand. I understand. I'm not so sure I'm completely exactly that far along. The housing or the product type as well, in terms of rental versus owner, that is a concern for me as we keep, as I spoke about, I think in the joint county and city meeting, of where the new entry-level house is. It's not a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a picket fence. It's not a condo that aren't being built. It's not a duplex. It's not. It's now a 1-bedroom apartment. And at that rate, and at the rental levels, you can't really save, because it's almost cheaper to own than it is to rent at this point. So to my, what are we doing here in terms of the product type and the affordability issue and rental versus ownership? All those issues for me are ones that I'd like to have the conversation, or at least think about. And when I read this document and the recommendations, I just don't see that conversation, the space for that conversation, which again leads me to that same place in terms of my concern for this action.
I think that's really a conversation amongst yourselves.
In closed session? I'm kidding. So, I'm going to leave it at that. I think my point's made, at least for myself, just to get these issues out and to have the discussion. Maybe the opportunity at the study session to be a little bit more open beyond just the village plan, to just at least talk about some of these issues might be helpful, as opposed to just one agenda item, maybe 2. So thank you very much.
Councilor Oliverio.
Thank you, Mayor Reed. I'm happy to support your memo, and with all our colleagues signed on. It's where I've been for a long time. It's where we've gone, all the lessons from the past, and I think it really just rests on the residents of San Jose that if they're going to allow a future council to suburban sprawl through Coyote Valley and South Almaden and convert these industrial parcels to housing, then those same residents that would allow that to happen must be willing to accept fewer city services, because there simply will be no tax revenue to provide it. And residents need to keep this in mind, that how San Jose grows has a direct effect on the revenues. And then when we're making these long-term decisions, that my hope that our same residents will realize that through land use policy, we do have control and we can make our city better. Or alternatively, we can continue to go down the same ineffective path that Mayor Reed had highlighted of all the industrial land conversions and repeat those same mistakes. And I don't think I'm alone in thinking we deserve better, and that's where we went with the general plan. It took way too long, but in the end, it's done. And here we are with the memo that I'm going to support today. Thank you, Mayor Reed.
I have a couple of requests to speak on this item from the public. We'll take that now. Martha O'Connell and David Wall.
Martha O'Connell, Senior Commission. Today's a very bad day to be talking about housing, because yesterday a Liberal Democrat vetoed AB 1229, which I'm sure you're aware would have allowed this city to adopt and enforce inclusionary housing laws, and a Liberal Democrat vetoed that bill, to my astonishment. I understand the pendulum, but I'm pleading with you guys, as you do these plans, do not let it flip to the other side, where affordable housing areas are taken out in these urban villages. The subcommittee of the Senior Commission Housing and Human Services voted on a 3-to-1 vote to send to the full commission a recommendation to council and mayor, which will be heard in November, that when urban villages are being constructed, that if there are any mobile home parks in those villages, particularly senior parks, that they remain and be incorporated as part of the urban village. Because even though these folks may not be worth as much money, as I'm hearing said, because they no longer work, it's chilling to hear money being put on human lives, seniors do need some place to live, and when you're constructing urban villages, you need to consider displacement. Do not let that happen. Keep the affordable housing stock that you have. Do not let the urban villages become a Trojan horse to take away affordable housing.
David Wall.
I think you should change the title of Envision San Jose 2040 to Desperately Seeking Utopia. You've created an intractable problem for yourself with reference to the equilibrium of jobs and housing, predominantly because of your vexation for just housing all over the place. Excuse me. And this goes to incorporating all sorts of changes to the municipal codes that favor high-density development, and yet there's no high-density jobs that was previously spoken. As an example, for our intrepid travelers to Ireland, we have not seen or heard why Intel decided to go to Ireland to create their new chip. Why not Japantown? Okay, or why not Almaden Valley? Oh, we don't hear any of that. And yet, there's no jobs, and you just continually open the door for more and more people to come here to the city of San Jose, in which you don't have, through your ministerial duties, the necessary employment structure or transportation infrastructure to deal with it. In addition, the social engineering, you're telling people, well, we're going to change things to where you're not going to be driving cars. Well, that's fine. People that that adopt that philosophy will stay here. Other people will just have their cars and go about their business the way they've always been doing. You can't even get bicycles off the sidewalks. I know Councilmember LICCARDO should be championed and thanked for his sole efforts in this regard. When one of our neighbors was victimized by a bicycle just a couple of weeks ago on a sidewalk. So when I hear this urban village approach, I just think of utopia. And it's just, I don't think it's going to work. In places where it's established by government action, by having the required infrastructure, fine, then it does work. But currently, you need to focus on transportation and a moratorium on housing.
That concludes public testimony. We have a motion to approve based on memorandum with the addition of the November 12th date for the study session. On that motion, all in favor? Opposed? One opposed. Councilmember Rocha. Motion carries. Taking us to our next item, which would be item 4.3, reorganization annexation of parcel designated as Burbank number 42.
Mayor Reed, I believe, Joe, are you speaking on that? Joe Carpenter? I know there's a member from the public who wanted to chat on that.
Okay. Is there a staff report? All right, Joe Carpenter, let's take the public testimony now.
Thank you for letting me spend a few moments on this. General, I'm president of the Buena Vista Neighborhood Association, which is in this area. We support the annexation of this. In fact, we support the annexation of all the rest of the unincorporated pockets in our area. They continue to cause all kinds of issues for us on a lot of different levels, specifically the 43-acre pocket that's still left that's on the other side of West San Carlos. Specifically to this property, though, I'm a little concerned about the outreach and how that happened. We were not notified as a neighborhood organization that this annexation was happening or the development of this property was happening. We kind of found out about it kind of happenstance, to be perfectly honest. Furthermore, so not only was the neighborhood community not notified, other than the I think it's 300 or 500 foot radius, but also this is directly in the center of one of the urban villages that I've been listening to you talk about for quite some time earlier today. And although I've attended all of those meetings and have signed up and diligently wrote down my contact information, nobody from the community that has participated in those outreach meetings was notified that this property was being developed and how it may be affected or unaffected by the urban village plans as early as we are in that process. So something clearly is broken here in terms of communication. I know that's not specifically what's on the agenda today as far as whether or not to annex this property, but the outreach piece of this is really, really broken on a lot of levels. With this property specifically, The conditional use that's been proposed so far for this is a used car lot. I'm sure you all are very familiar with West San Carlos.
Sorry, your time is up. That concludes the public testimony on this matter. Staff, could you talk a little bit about that? I'm just seeing an annexation in front of us today. I don't see any other development application.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, Mr. Carpenter was referring to, we are processing a conditional use permit, so that will be going to the Planning Commission at a later date. Today is only an annexation. Under state law, there is not a requirement for notification, but staff did do 500-foot notification to the property owners surrounding this site. We did not go and use the contact list from our village plans. That is a really good suggestion. And so with the use permit, that is something that I'll talk with my staff about, of making sure that the community members who have been engaged in that process are aware of the use permit and any community meetings going on for that. So it is one of those kind of a new world orders we're working through of what's the relationship of village plans to development activity. So I will take that under as a good suggestion from the community.
But we're not making that decision today.
Correct.
Just the annexation.
Correct.
Okay. Councilmember Oliverio, did you?
Yeah, and just so everyone understands, it's in the county, and when the private property owner wants to do something with it, it comes in the realm of annexation of the city. They have proposed to do something at a later date, not today's, but to do something that's allowed in the zoning. But that question of how that will be treated at that time is a matter for that item. And, you know, and there's a much larger areas of the count that are county pockets within my district and others, but those are really, they come in as the private property owner wants, or if it's initiated by the property owners as an entire area, but we're not doing that today. And that is a topic of, you know, if people want to look at policy issues to talk about, we can talk about all the county pockets that are in San Jose and what the city's strategy may be, which is status quo or doing something proactively. But I know that those opinions run drastically different depending on who you speak to that lives in the county pocket. I know Joe Carpenter is a rah-rah for San Jose and much appreciated for your civic mindedness, but that's a later policy discussion. But today, for the action today to start the annexation process, I would make a motion to approve the staff report.
All right, we have a motion to approve the staff report on the annexation, leaving for another day what might actually happen on the property, of course. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? And unopposed, motion is approved. Item 4.4 is regarding our sister city relationship with the Ekaterinburg, Russia. Councilmember KALRA.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to thank Councilmember Campos and Constant for signing on to this resolution. Ever since the Russian Federation put into effect some rather stringent anti-LGBT measures for its resident citizens and even visitors to Russia. There have been many calls of different actions that community members both here and throughout the nation have been asking cities to take part in, and that includes cutting off ties to our sister city relationships with Russian cities. I am on the Sister City International board, the national board now, and so I've been in very close touch with Sister City International staff to see what other cities have been doing in response to this. And I certainly felt and hope my colleagues agree that it's better for us to take proactive action that both, on the one hand, condemns the actions of the Russian Federation and additionally further bolsters our relationship with our sister city. There are a number of positive benefits for doing that. First of all, Sister Cities International is a citizen diplomacy organization. It's not a government-to-government organization. Therefore, condemning or cutting off ties with our sister city does nothing to in any way affect the Russian government or those that are making the decisions on behalf of the Russian people there. And so by bolstering our sister city relationship, what we do is we keep the channels of communication open. We continue to build on our sister city relationship. We have the national conference coming to San Jose this next year. And so this is certainly a time for us, as we discussed earlier in terms of our trip to Dublin and our actions in terms of building a relationship with Guadalajara, this is a time for us to, in every aspect possible, bolster our sister city relationship and show support for the Russian people, and more specifically members of the LGBT community in Ekaterinburg and throughout Russia, that we're not going to sever ties with our friends in Russia, but rather strengthen them and at the same time condemn any actions that are against the equality and civil rights of all people. And Councilman Constant, in fact, signed on to it, and he does not oftentimes sign on to resolutions. He does not sign on to any resolution unless he feels there's a connection to the city of San Jose, and he appropriately so, in my estimation, felt that there's enough connection here, given our sister city relationship, as well as given the fact that our city has repeatedly stood up on the side of the rights of all of our members, and similarly would extend our feeling that members of the community in Ekaterinburg, regardless whether they're members of the LGBT community or not, their rights should be protected as well. And so with that, I'd like to put forward a motion to accept the memorandum dated October 3rd.
Motion is to approve the memorandum with the resolution. I have a couple of requests to speak from the public. We'll take that now. Martha O'Connell. And Jeffrey Badola.
My preference is that you cut off your sister city relationship with what appears to be the beginning of another evil empire, to quote a favorite politician of mine. But anyway, I don't think there's the votes for that, so I reluctantly support the resolution. I spoke to Councilperson KALRA after the Rules Committee and asked him, are we just going to be talking to ourselves? And he assured me that the city officials were going to be made aware of the vote. So given that, it's better than nothing.
Jeff Badola.
I think the underlying issue needs better definition. I perceive that homosexuality is not what it purports to be. Therefore, either it doesn't exist or it's something else. We should figure out before voting on this. There will be constitutional challenge going ahead. Ground tremors are being felt. You don't have to be hurtful, but straight talk is necessary. Don't promote inappropriate sexual behavior. When you get right down to it, that's what this is about. I think that applies to any sexual behavior, really. It constitutionally tends to interfere with the pursuit of happiness, because true self-fulfillment is possible through control of the sex drive. Sexual behavior for purposes of procreation is the only form society has an interest in recognizing. Individual rights don't exist in a vacuum. If people are crazy enough to engage in procreative sex, the state has to recognize that. Otherwise, it's in the state's interest not granting recognition to what can't be approved by individual conscience. Sexual behavior is self-expression with profound social consequences. You don't write a blank check of rights for this. Sexual energy is either expressed through the instinctual system, or we channel that energy through the rational faculty. Rational self-control is better. Thanks.
That concludes public testimony. We have a motion to approve the memorandum resolution. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
Mayor.
I'm sorry, one opposed. Councilmember Oliverio. So one opposed.
And Mayor, I just wanted to say that there's millions of people in the world that live in various nation states that do not have the same freedoms that we do enjoy in this country. However, in my viewpoint, as a council member, just believe I'm not focused on international policy, even though I much agree with it, but I can't support these things as they come to council. Thank you.
Councilmember Liccardo.
Mayor, thank you. I had neglected to hit the comment button. My apologies. I just had a quick question for the maker of the motion. Certainly, I agree with the intent and have long supported marriage equality and LGBT rights. The question is, though, is there any communication in the Russian media about this? Are there Russian-speaking spokespeople that we're communicating through?
The intention is once and if the council adopts this resolution, that through our sister city relationship, we will transmit the actions of the council to our sister city. It's something that LA has similarly done with their sister city. I can't recall which one the sister city is, but I think, again, since this is a citizen diplomacy organization, we'll certainly let it be known to our counterparts in Ekaterinburg that the city of San Jose has taken this action.
Okay. Okay. I know that there was reference to specific action, and I just want to understand exactly what that action is. Thank you.
Councilmember Herrera.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm supporting this, and I think that the fact that we have the sister city relationship gives us more standing in terms of weighing in. I don't think that we should weigh in every kind of international thing that comes up, but we have a relationship with them, and we have a way to do it through the sister city program that will probably at least get the attention possibly of that city's government. Whereas if we just cut the relationship, I'm not sure how what kind of communication that would result in. So I think we need to send that message since we have the ability to do it. And I am a strong supporter of LGBT rights and marriage equality. And I'm proud that this council's taken that stand. And I think that it's going to be, Russia's going to be uniquely in focus with their Olympics coming up. And cities now do, as we've seen with our trip to Dublin and other relationships that we're establishing globally, cities are really where the action is in terms of what goes on for most people for work and play and everything about their lives. So San Jose taking a position and hopefully having some positive influence over there, at least letting the LGBT community know in Ekaterinburg that we support them, I think is a real positive step. And as a Jewish American, I'm not going to go into history, but we remember another Olympics another time, and we have an opportunity to stand up, and I'm very proud to be part of that.
I count the vote as 9-1 in favor with 1 absent. Councilmember Constant being out on family emergency. Is that correct? Councilmember Oliverio opposed. I believe that was it. Okay, we're done. Motion is approved. We'll turn to item 4.5, motion and waiver of 7-day advance online posting of the October 23rd Planning Commission agenda. We have a motion to approve. I have no request to speak. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion is approved. Waiver is granted. Item 5.1, actions related to agreement with Alum Rock Union School District for rehab and operation of softball fields and play areas at Ocala Middle School. Councilmember Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to acknowledge and thank Councilmember Rocha for way at the beginning in terms of looking at facilities to have softball, soccer, and other types of recreational opportunities for youth. And this endeavor actually spurred from that spirit that I know he's tirelessly been working on. Those of you that have had a chance to get out to Emmerprush Park and Vegilution can see firsthand what happens when one of our invested job creators and job providers here in the Valley, what kind of impact they can have when they partner with government to do something good in the community. They did that last year at Vegilution and approached myself if I had any more ideas, as to where they could be effective. And, first thing that came to mind was Ocala Middle School, which has softball fields now that actually hosts one of the only, if not the only, youth girls softball league in the city. And they've been playing on dilapidated fields for a very, very long time. Got NVIDIA interested in that, and a number of folks worked on this. Stemming from our Parks and Recs department. So I want to thank our Parks and Recs department, Matt, Angel, Suzanne Wolf, Jason Condit. I want to thank also Councilmember Herrera, who once NVIDIA came to me, first thing I did was talk to Councilmember Herrera to ask her, what she thought. She jumped on board right away. I know that you've got a lot of constituents that have been very concerned about that. So we were able to bring this resource to Ocala Middle School. The Alum Rock School District, all 5 board members saw the benefit of the joint relationship. They've actually experienced having to work with the city when we built a couple of libraries and youth centers and sports fields on joint property, and we put together similar lease agreements with similar types of shared uses. I also want to thank Jan Sun Huang, who is the CEO of NVIDIA, who really makes the effort to put these types of investments in our community. And along with Tony Hansen, Laura Clemenson, Liz Austin, as part of that team. There's a whole bunch of folks worked on this, along with my staff, Nicole Willett and Karina Dominguez, who actually wrote the initial grant. But this really is the wave of the future, where we have to look at bringing partners together to invest in our city. And what we're going to get here at Ocala Middle School is 4 brand new softball fields, and it's not going to stop there. NVIDIA has committed to also work on rehabbing and refurbishing parts of the campus, painting, redoing blacktops, and other types of playing surfaces. And on top of that, NVIDIA has committed to provide an after-school program, an educational enhancement program after school. They're also working with our Parks and Recs department to bring some of that, the Prop 49 funding that we're able to bring into that site. But what you're really seeing is NVIDIA leveraging all of these resources that are there to actually make a systemic and a lasting change in a community. And that's what happens when communities like San Jose really put the brain power together and the will together to get something done. So with that, I'd like to move forward the memo that Councilmember Herrera and I put forward to approve this project.
We have a motion on the floor. Councilmember Herrera.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I want to thank Councilmember Campos for his vision on this, and in particular his staff for doing a lot of the work on the grant writing, and my staff as well. I think this is really a very good project on many different levels, including the fact that Ocala School is in District 8, but we share a boundary, and we support the same residents. And it's nice to be able to work with a council colleague and know that the work you're doing is going to benefit all of the folks in that area, and that we put our money together. We not only put our time together, we put the money in too, both of us contributing, I think I know we're contributing $200,000 on our side to make sure that this happens. I have worked with the East Valley Softball League that Councilmember Campos was talking about, John Trejo. They're very excited about this. And we're talking about girls playing softball. And, I really, really feel it's important that we not only look for homes and fields for boys and girls in Little League, but we also really pay attention to these girls softball leagues. And this is one of the only ones in our area, and they are really struggling to make sure that they can continue to support girls playing. One of the things I left out of the report when I talked about Ireland was their sports program. They have a sports program that is an amateur program, and they support both boys and girls, and equally. And when it comes time to have the playoffs, they admitted to me that sometimes their women's teams have less viewing audience than the boys and the men's teams. But they still give the girls' teams and the women's teams a chance to play at their large stadium. And I asked the director about why, he said, yeah, we thought about saving money and moving it to a smaller field, because then we'd fill up the stadium. And he said, these girls grow up wanting to play at Croak Field, and we're going to give them the opportunity. And so I like the fact that we're going to give these girls the opportunity to play at Ocala, that we're going to have these fields there for them. And hopefully we're going to be getting other sports fields for our community. The East Side has a lack of them, and this is just going to be, it will help towards solving that deficit in fields that our community needs, and hopefully we can get more of them down the road. Thank you.
We have one request to speak. Mr. Wall.
I'd like to give thanks to Councilmember Rocha, Councilmember Herrera, and Councilmember Campos. Your actions in this matter show and illustrate that at least one time, one day a week, government serves the public very well. Thank you so very, very much. And I hope that this will keep growing impetus throughout the other council districts, because this is an outstanding idea, an outstanding accomplishment, an outstanding illustration of public service by the aforementioned council members. Thank you.
I want to thank NVIDIA for their tremendous contributions time and time again in the city. I've been to a couple of their school makeover days, and it's a fantastic outpouring of 1,000 people or more on a school site to really do some great work. This is kind of carrying it to a whole new level, and I know it's not easy to put these things together. I want to make sure that we thank our staff, Julie Edmonds-Maras and the PRNS staff and the city attorney staff and everybody that gets involved in these joint use agreements. When I was first a council member, we did the Albizo Youth Center and then the Berryessa Youth Center, and it was a struggle to get through the process between school district and city to actually get to a joint use agreement. And so we've refined that, and I know that it's still difficult, but we do get it done thanks to a lot of good staff work and leadership from our two council colleagues. It's going to be a great facility, and it's going to be good for the entire community. So thanks, NVIDIA, for making it possible. Councilmember Herrera.
Thanks, NVIDIA. I just needed to say that. And thanks, staff. Of course, our staff did a fabulous job.
All right, we have a motion to approve on that motion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That is approved. Item 6.1 is next. That's an agreement with VF Mall LLC for reimbursement costs for ramp modifications at I-80 Stevens Creek Boulevard interchange. Motion is to approve. Mr. Wall, you want to speak on this one?
Sir, this is $3 million. This is really kind of like a drop in the bucket. I mean, I'm glad you're getting it. But let us not forget what happens in this arena, this area, from 880 to Stevens Creek Boulevard. We have traffic backups on 880 that goes for miles, especially around Thanksgiving and the holiday season and Christmas. This is hardly anything. What is needed is sustainable, in addition to this, and more money, but sustainable either San Jose police presence or some other form of traffic control that can mitigate these flows to get people off the freeway instead of using the freeway as a parking lot. This is going to show up as well from how 87 intersects with 85 at Almaden Valley exit down in District 9 with that proposed development that's behind Safeway in that huge vacant field. That the same thing is going to happen there too. But this business on 880 to Stevens Creek has been a nightmare for years, and I doubt with what you've allowed that expansion over there at Valley Fair, that this will have no impact whatsoever on traffic. It's still going to be a horrible nightmare of safety and completely avoidable traffic accidents. But you allowed these developments to occur, and now this mere pittance to affect mitigation of traffic is not going to do anything. You really need to have on-site San Jose police officers directing traffic to empty these freeways so they don't become hazards, obstacles for other drivers. Thank you.
That concludes public testimony. We have a motion to approve the staff recommendation. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Item 7.1 is next. That's an agreement with CTS International Corp. For technical training services at the San Jose Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility. I'd just like to note that in your packet you have a letter from the Treatment Plant Advisory Committee recommending approval. We discussed this at length at the meeting, and the partners and tributaries have recommended the council approve this. And with that, I'll turn it over to city staff for the presentation.
Thank you. Carrie Romanow, Director, Environmental Services. I'm joined with Linda Shafaris, our Division Manager leading our Administrative Services Division, and Joanna Dessa, the Deputy Director over Wastewater Operations and Maintenance. What we are recommending today is that we adopt a resolution to execute an agreement with CTS Corp. To provide consultant services to develop a technical training program out at the regional wastewater facility. The total amount is not to exceed $2.25 million, and to provide up to 2 one-year options through June 30, 2019. The expected outcome is to expedite the way we are able to integrate wastewater operators, mechanics, and other trades out at the wastewater facility. I want to provide a little bit of background on why we're recommending this approach, then provide a little bit of detail on the procurement process as well as the project scope. Don't see. Over the past 2 years, the Environmental Services Department has operated with over 20% vacancy rate department-wide. The wastewater facility has operated at an even higher vacancy rate over this period. We've continued to treat wastewater safely and protect our environment, with over a quarter of our operators and mechanics positions remaining vacant. Over the last year, we did hire 17 staff. Unfortunately, we lost 14. So 1 step forward and 1 step back. We do believe, however, that the classification work recently implemented will have a positive impact on our retention and hiring success. However, establishing a stable facility requires our team to be trained and competent in our facility. We bring in new hires with the state-required certification, but it presently takes 5 years to integrate for new staff to learn the nuances of our facility. In August of 2012, the auditor reported that 43% of our O&M team had 5 or more years of experience. That means that almost half of our operators and maintenance team are not as knowledgeable in our facility as we believe they need to be to function independently. Our current and historic hiring practice is integration process is to pair up new hires with a more experienced staff, and over time work towards full dependence. Unfortunately, given where we are today, that process simply cannot continue with the reduced level of experienced staff and headcount. The decline in institutional knowledge means that we need to expedite the learning curve. So last year, we created strategies to alter our historic employee integration process. We simply can't pair up staff with this headcount. So part of our multi-part strategy, which I'll speak to in a minute, is we provided a budget proposal to implement this type of training program, so to fast-track employees and reduce integration time from 5 years to under 2 years. So with this action, we're asking to move forward on something that we put forward as a budget proposal. So our multifaceted recruitment approach. It's not, we addressed the new classifications, provided some additional compensation. That's certainly going to have a positive effect. We've drastically increased our recruitment and outreach efforts. We've had career fairs, and we've increased our postings. We also have training programs, operator in training, mechanic in training. We've added wastewater attendant positions so we can bring in folks at a very low level, train them up at our facility, and we've hired our first high school intern. So the consultant selection process. In February of 2013, we issued an RFQ. It was posted from February to March. We provided outreach. 114 people or organizations viewed the RFQ. 63 downloaded it. Unfortunately, we received 1 proposal. What we're finding is very few firms have this expertise. Most organizations provide this type of training in-house. They use their own staff and their own experienced headcount. So in effect, we're blazing new ground with this process, and we think that our facility is different. and our experience over the last several years, we believe we need a new approach. So let me tell you about the firm that we are recommending approval with and why we're confident in our ability to deliver on this mission-critical effort. CTS was founded in 2008. Its chief operating officer, Jim McPherson, has 28 years of experience as a trainer, 10 years as a coordinator with nearby Union Sanitary District, where he developed and implemented over 30 modules, the exact type of modules that we're talking about today. He also had 18 years prior experience in the Navy as a trainer. He has a master's degree in education and is also a certified trainer. So what we're proposing is that we have competency-based training. We would propose to have a pre-test, so we'll test our employees' knowledge before the training class and we'll test it after. So we're looking to ensure that the knowledge is transferred through the coursework. If it's not, we'll make adjustments and continue to move that process forward. We've listed the number of headcount in each of the categories that would be trained. Clearly, there'll be more training modules for wastewater operators. So for wastewater operators, we would propose having 10 modules. For process control systems specialists, 2 modules. So they're not all treated equally, but we do think we would like to have a holistic organization-wide training program so that as the new equipment comes online, we're able to address that as well as the existing work. So our approach for this work is to do a training needs assessment and go through a very rigorous process to ensure we're delivering the right modules, and then again do checks and balances throughout the process. This, in effect, lets us batch train employees rather than train one-on-one. I wanted to also point out that we're proposing that our staff would take over the running of this program in 3 to 4 years, as we have the headcount and expertise to do so, and therefore there's a train the trainer component, and we also own the copyright to all the materials. The organizational structure, that's a request we get often to show the organizational structure, organizational chart of how we would integrate consultants. So the division manager, Linda Shafaras, will lead this program. She'll be supported by city staff, and the training firm CTS will report through Linda, leveraging our subject matter experts as well as theirs. Again, we'll issue service orders as needed. So we'll take this one step at a time. We're not proposing to issue the full $750,000 this year, but we would take it one step at a time and measuring and monitoring throughout to ensure that we are making the desired progress. Clearly, we'll make strategy adjustments if as needed. I think I talked about that. So with that, we're ready to take questions.
Councilmember Rocha.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, and for the record, I did read this, just so forgive me if I missed a reference to it when I ask a question. But the training, is that on old equipment, new equipment, both?
That's a great question, thank you. It's, this program is focused on the existing equipment, and then our program management firm with the capital improvement program will be providing training for new equipment. So with that, we'll have the same approach, and we'll capture all the equipment at the facilities concurrently.
And how do you layer that together to have the right, I don't know, software or whatever the case may be for the training? I mean, where is this going to be housed? It's going to be the same format, I'm assuming, when you have 2 different entities doing kind of the logging of the training, so to speak, as you just pointed out?
It's in-house and classroom training, and we presently have an online training tracking software that we're already using, and so we would integrate both this program and the CIP program into our existing formats.
Okay, thank you. I see the necessity on the new equipment. I'm going to ask a kind of a hard question, but is the necessity on the old equipment purely a result of the turnover, or
Yes.
would we? So yes, that was an easy
It would
answer.
be better. It would. I mean, to be honest, it would be better if we would have started this 2 decades ago.
Well, then we wouldn't have had to do it, right? Right. Great. Thank you for your honesty on that one. The RFQ, we had another issue come before us where there was only one submittal, and that's a concern to at least raise and ask the question about, and the comfort for me knowing that we were able to negotiate, and based upon the last discussion, you folks made it pretty clear that we were able to negotiate a good price. I didn't see a reference to the ability to negotiate in this case, and that would lead me to ask a little bit more about the RFQ. So was there an amount listed in the RFQ, or was that just a number that the company came up with and we worked with them on?
Our budget proposal had a defined dollar amount, and so that's our not to exceed amount. But if you look in Exhibit B of the contract, there's the rates that we've agreed upon with CTS, and I think they're very reasonable rates, and they match similar services for other training programs that we use.
So in our RFQ, we listed what our budget was?
Yes, and we may or may not use all of that.
Okay. Then leads me to the last question, is the necessity for that third year. It just seems a heck of a long time, but again, in maybe ESD years that goes by like that, but for me, 3 years seems like a long time to get through this training, and again, my question really is the necessity of that last year. Of course, it'd be great if it was 6 months and we could cut this contract down a lot, but just going to lead to the last part is the necessity for that last year. How strong is that?
I feel very strongly that we need it. We're in effect outsourcing our training for a 3-year period. A positive is at the end of the term, we'll be able to take it on, but we just simply don't have the headcount to lead all of this training activity right now anyway, even if we knew how to do it.
Okay, thank you. I better understand it's just $750,000 is still a lot of money, heck of a lot of money, but thank you for your time.
Councilmember KALRA.
Thank you, Mayor. And Councilor Rocha touched on some of the questions, and essentially it just comes down to looking at the policy alternatives that we just don't have staff, particularly experienced staff, to train, to do the training necessary. And it indicates that one of the options is continue with the current training program, which would lead to new hires being trained, taking 2 years to be trained. And what is, with this new program, how long will it take for a new hire to be trained?
Right now, it's 5 years, and our goal is 1 year.
Okay, and so the idea is that in a couple years, our staff will be, we won't need to have the consultant firm anymore, train new employees?
Exactly. So the intent is that very similar to the capital improvement program out at the wastewater facility, where we bring in a third party with that expertise and experience and their own framework, and they kickstart the program, and then over time they hand it off to us, and then our staff take it and move into the future.
Now, the capacity for us to take it over is the assumption, or at least the assumption that we're going to have staff that's going to stay with us. As you indicated, although we had 17 hires in the last fiscal year, we had 14 employees leave. So it's, you know, if, again, this comes down to the issue of us just not being competitive, because as long as we remain non-competitive, there's nothing that's going, that we can, there's no way that we can predict that we're going to have employees that stay with us. And so there could be a likelihood that in 2 or 3 years you come back to us, again, not your fault, just making sure that you're operating, making sure operations are maximized and training is maximized, but you could very well come back in 2 or 3 years and say we still need to, maybe not to the same level, but we still need to continue on with some of the training, the consultants, because we still don't have enough experienced folks yet that are trained.
And I certainly hope that that's not true. With the operators and mechanics, recall in August we approved classification changes, and those changes also included associated compensation. So that adjustment has made us more competitive, and our hope is that as we go out and continue to recruit, that we will be able to not only hire new people but also retain them into the future.
It's even with those changes, though, are we competitive with either other public agencies or private sector?
Yes.
You feel that we are competitive?
We're in the market range.
And for the training, is the training both incorporate city hires as well as the outsourced positions that we're contracted with in terms of training?
No.
Okay, so this is going to be just for city staff, so we're going to create at least a group of city staff that will be appropriately trained?
Yeah, so our intent is not to have any temporary staff go through rigorous training. Certainly, we do provide safety training as needed, but absent that, we're not looking to make large investments in temporary staff.
You know, and I appreciate this coming forward. I just think it's another statement as to what has happened with our city when we've lost very high quality employees with, as you mentioned, with institutional knowledge as well as just experience in the field. And here we are, we're going to spend $2.25 million because we've lost employees. And sometimes these numbers aren't incorporated into the cost-benefit analysis of some of the moves we've made as a council, but they should be. Just like the training costs that we're losing when police officers leave should be incorporated as well, because these are real dollars that we have to find from some source in order to pay, pay for either training or pay for employees. In this case, for a very critical need to ensure that our employees, the new ones that come in, are brought up to speed as quickly as possible. Because you're right, I mean, the 5 years is just not acceptable, either for us or for the employee. You know, for an employee to have to go through a process where it takes them 5 years to get up to speed, I'm sure that doesn't give them confidence in the place that they're working for as well. I'm sure they'd love to be up to speed and fully trained as soon as possible. Now, that being said, as soon as they're fully trained, they're now more marketable in the private sector and in the public agencies as well. And so, you know, that I'm not confident that the long-term prospects are such that we're going to make rapid improvements in terms of our ability to both attract and retain employees, especially if given this new training program. I don't think that by itself, I think that the training program is necessary for us to operate, but I think that we should continue to pay attention to some of these trends because they're symptoms of a greater problem. Thank you, Kerry.
Councilmember LICCARDO.
Kerry, I just wanted to thank you for continuing to manage through what is a very difficult challenge that I think we gave you. So thank you for bringing this forward. If there's not been a motion made already, I'd be happy to make it this time.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Councilmember Herrera.
Yeah, I also want to thank Carrie. And Carrie, I think I recollect in the past that one of the issues that you confronted when you took over the plant is kind of the need to preserve institutional knowledge. You know, that when people leave, the kind of knowledge goes with them. And that wasn't just a result of, you know, the staffing issues we face now, but that's been sort of an ongoing thing of really needing to train people and, you know, make sure that we're able to keep institutional knowledge within the plant.
It certainly has been an ongoing challenge at the facility. It's something that we recognized 6 or 7 years ago. Unfortunately, the retirements and the attrition just escalated much faster than we were prepared, and some of our SOP and succession planning work had to be tabled so that we could continue to operate the facility.
But I guess what you're putting into place is something that we needed anyway, and it's even more important now that we're dealing with folks that have left. But it's really it's making a big improvement in how we train people and how we retain people. And as you said in your memo that in the past you paired experienced people with less experience, and that's what took a long time to get the training done. So I just like the scheme that you're putting together here. And that, you know, we're taking people and using some consultants, but then letting those consultants, weaning them off, and then having our own people do the training. So I think it's a really good plan, and I like your positive attitude about retention and the fact that with the changes that we've made in some of those classifications that we are becoming more competitive. So that's good news too. But I just want to commend you on moving us forward in this direction.
Thank you.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Carrie, I might have missed it in the memo, so excuse me if I did. In terms of the timeline where this training is critical, the time frame, I should say, we're trying to basically keep the current plant running at the same time that we're preparing to build and operate, and so there'll probably be a crossover period. So can you just explain the importance of sustaining the training regardless of the reason for the turnover, and over what period of time?
Yeah, thank you. So we're looking to, over the next 3 to 4 years, build up our ability to integrate operators and mechanics predominantly in a year timeline so that we can adequately bring in new people. At the same time, we're using our operators and mechanics to select new technologies and then to support a almost $1 billion capital improvement program. So all of that activity together means we're building new equipment and then continuing to operate and maintain the existing equipment, and we need staff capable in all of those at once. And so it's really a lot of activity, but we feel the more organized it is, the better able we'll be to sort of keep all the balls in the air at the same time and move forward. But we did feel that we need to start this now, so because there is a sort of an organizational setup time that before we're able to even start the training. So it'll take us several months to get the first modules prepared and ready. So so timing is important, but we think we're going to get some really great candidates, and we're going to continue to provide great service to our community.
I have requests to speak. We'll take that now. David Wall.
Councilmember KALRA hit it on the head. There's a bigger problem here than what's being discussed through niceties. The problem resides in the office of the city manager, with specifically the appointments made under section 411.1 of the city charter. These assistant directors that come in should be able to create training programs. Now, if you look at Appendix B of the handout at Treatment Plan Advisory Committee on October 10th, where you, Mr. Mayor, are its chairman, Vice Mayor Nguyen is a member, Ed Shikata is a member of TPAC. This thing could have been written by the high school kid they just hired. All right. The issue is that managers making the tons of money that these people are should have the ability to create and maintain training programs that are specifically tailored to our water pollution control plan. There should also be several layers of accountability with the members of TPAC who sit there and take stipends, with the exception of Mr. Shikata. What are you doing? That's your job. You've just failed miserably to do your job at the TPAC level, and you failed it miserably at the office of the city manager level, because these training programs were in the past present there at the plant, along with a safety officer. You've contracted that out to a maximum of $500,000. This right here, $2.25 million, also look at Appendix D. There's already a form to extend this contract out. So what do you pay your managers to do outside of giving platitudes and niceties to council members, when in all reality, these folks at ESD hand out upper division management jobs as party favors? Check and look at who was responsible for governing Fund 423, the Integrated Waste Fund. That fund was run into a ditch. How was it allowed to take $4 million out of the plant income fund for the Innovation Center? Decisions like this are catastrophic. Thank you.
Jim Piazza.
Mr. Walls, you hit it right on the head again. You guys are all, again, drinking that Kool-Aid again. And let me tell you, if you guys can applaud this, I don't know what to tell you guys. We have to go and train these people for the equipment that we've already got? Are you kidding me? Mr. Rocha, aren't you guys starting to look at this and starting to get very suspicious? And by the way, let's get down to another thing again. How can you guys, the EIR that you, again, submitted was flawed? Because why? I'll tell you why. How can you have TCE right next to the water pollution plant? I know how. You guys got the bambling Three Stooges over here. Again, that's why nobody gets answers. Nobody knows exactly what's going on over there, but I do. Again, there should be TCE. Again, what's going on? How come nobody's asking all the tough questions?
That concludes public testimony. We have a motion to approve the recommendation. Councilor Oliverio.
Thank you, Mayor. And so there's this general high demand for people in this area, in the Bay Area, nationally and globally, and I'm looking around at Same issues are in Ottawa, Anaheim, Texas, and Minneapolis. And a segment of our society has chosen to not move in this direction of a career. Do you feel that there's a way of marketing to a certain segment of the community that says, you may not have thought about this because it's not necessarily what you perceived as a cool, hip job, but it's actually a job that will pay you very well and you'll have permanent employment. You have any thoughts on that for the sector as a whole or San Jose?
I do. I think part of the challenge is just letting folks know that the opportunities are available and that in spite of the stigma that working at a wastewater facility may provide at first glance, that it really is a great place to work. And our staff out there do a fantastic job, and they're just a wonderful group of talented folks. So what we've been doing is doing outreach to some of the high schools. We're also meeting this week with Evergreen Community College, and we're talking with more educational institutions about how to engage people in this as a career opportunity for them. And one of the ways we think we can make it be more successful and more enticing to folks is to make their ability to integrate quicker and to make it less intimidating for them. But certainly we think that it's a career that's never going to be put offshore. It's not going anywhere. It's going to be here, and we would love for local residents to move into these careers and continue to contribute.
Thanks. And with that said, though, it'll still be a challenge for us and any other municipality that operates these facilities. It sounds like it's going to be a continual process. So being that it's a challenge, and maybe city manager, mayor, city attorney, I don't recall ever having the conversation here of what are the advantages of maintaining this facility as a city facility versus what are the advantages or disadvantages of just selling it. I think that would be an interesting discussion to understand what are the pros and cons of that. I mean, I would not have to be dealing with this right now if I didn't own this facility. And I think some cities own them, some cities don't. And I think, when would that be a relevant conversation? And I wouldn't expect it to be next week, but when do you think? I mean, is that something where I would just write a memo and pose the conversation to have that conversation, or is there a time when it would make sense?
Well, I'll let the mayor and Rick weigh in from their perspective. Whenever you want to have it, I would assume we could be prepared to have it. I think what makes that conversation more difficult for the city of San Jose is we don't own it completely ourselves. We're in partnership with other cities, so it's a very complex partnership. And so unlike facilities that we own ourselves, where the policy decision might be made and you test the market, et cetera, this has a significant complexity because of the partnership with other very important cities. And Ed?
Sure. If I could add, Councilmember Ed Chicada, Assistant City Manager, there have been some initial discussions per council direction with City of Santa Clara on what's the appropriate management structure for the plant. I think the reality, quite frankly, is that while over the past several years we have looked at a number of service delivery, evaluation, alternative governance models that more recently, in particular related to the plant as well as operations citywide, our focus has been on stabilizing the workforce and recognizing the instability, quite frankly, that's caused by having the discussion around alternative governance models. At this point, we've stayed focused on the training programs and really attempting to make the environment as stable as possible for that workforce.
So I think I get that we're trying to put out the fires to maintain the facility, and that I also understand is it the tributary partners? Is that the terminology? Santa Clara, Milpitas. But in the end, it's I guess we've never really had that discussion here, and it is a sort of major topic. I mean, for us looking to manage some of the deferred maintenance backlog of the city, this might, if the other cities agree and it was sold, for example, then that might be a windfall to take care of that maintenance. Again, it's all in the details of what agreement would be worked out, and what I'm talking about would obviously take a long time to get there, but I still find it, there's pros and there's cons, and I just think that's, and I think that's a worthy discussion as much as we've looked at other items, because it's going to continue to be difficult to manage this thing. So And again, if the city attorney or mayor wants to offer any feedback on my comments.
You know, this ultimately comes down to a policy call. I can just tell you that the cities of San Jose and Santa Clara own the plant pursuant to a joint powers agreement. It goes back as far as 1959. And the tributary agencies, the other public entities, participate sort of as, well, just participants funding a limited partnership role. But at the end of the day, all those policy issues as to whether we should be in this business is something that, you know, probably deserves a lot more time than just a brief discussion.
Right, and that's why I was thinking, and yeah, I mean, there's obviously different ways to go, and I also don't want to task staff to go do things if not necessary as far as the uber level of detail, but I think a simple plus minus column, you know, does having this in the city allows us to take some of that fee money and allow us to pay off City Hall? Does it allow us to pay for overhead to do other things, you know, those types of things?
Well, and there is a bond covenant in your existing bond documents for to the extent there are existing bonds outstanding that you will keep the agreement with the city of Santa Clara in place, so long as those existing bonds are out there. So those are just those are the legal issues. The ultimate question comes down to, do you want to be in this business?
To respond a little bit to your question, first we tried to stop the bleeding, and then we have to revive the patient. And now we're trying to get the patient stronger. So I didn't think it was really a great idea to get the staff distracted with operational, who's going to manage this when we have such important tasks in front of us along with the master plan work. Given the complexities of even considering a different operational model, and we have had some conversations with Santa Clara because they are in the JPA with us, but it is very complex with the financing and the operational and the tributaries. It really just wasn't worth the effort to distract our staff from focusing on some very real immediate problems, and I think Carrie can probably add some to that.
My personal opinion is that this is a critical facility that our city should have control over. If we were to outsource it, I also think that our rates would go up, and that would have an impact on the community. We've seen that in other regions. But as a way to mitigate some of our challenges going forward, recall in the as we go forward with the plant master plan work, we are proposing to do design build, operate with other firms. So we would be open to things like the energy systems being managed by a third party, and then keeping the core compliance operations under city control.
Councilor Chu.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the report. Are those training mandatory? I mean, are we asking our employees at the water treatment plant they have to take those training classes? Or we're just optional? If they sign up, then, you know.
I'll let Joanna add to that, but training competencies will be required.
As a part of the plan, we'll get an initial assessment done for everyone who's at the facility. So yeah, everybody's going to be going through these training modules. So we'll have a pre and a post test and assessment.
So it will be a mandatory training.
It will be. The intention really is to have the same consistent knowledge across the board, across all of the FTEs. The intention is really to make it straight and flat, and not to have it as has been in the past, where our sorry, that's me, our more experienced staff providing the on-the-job training, and then each person who may be incredibly experienced has a slightly different proficiency at delivering that information. What we're going to do is we're going to flatten it all out, have an expert provide that training, help us develop the modules, help us even train those probably very same people to do the consistent same deliverable styles and modules of training.
So this training on almost $2 million is a classroom type of setting, or is it online type of training?
It's going to be partially in the classroom, but partially in the field. So we'll be putting together practicals. So there will be some in the field training, some classroom training, and then assessments across both of those things. So you'll have a practical assessment as well as a classroom assessment.
And this is in the span of 2 years and with 1 year option. So after 3 years, we probably would just end this training program.
Well, what we would end is our relationship with the trainer. The intention by the 3rd year we would have our own internal trainers who would then take those very same modules, those very same methods forward internally and start to train our own staff.
Have we ever considered partner with some organization like Metro Ad or some other technical career, what they call career technical training education facilities? Why do we have to kind of take it on ourselves instead of like partnering with the Metro Ad and use their network to reach out to the high school students or even other dislocated adult to take a class to be mechanical engineers at a water treatment plant?
So if we think about the continuum of our employee recruitment and retention process, we are partnering with Work to Future, looking at community colleges, working with the BACWA, the Bay Area Clean Water Associations, on sort of engaging new folks into the training programs and getting more operators, as an example, more mechanics trained and ready. But then this particular training program focuses on our facility, much like a police officer goes to the academy and then works with a field training officer. This is that on-site part of our job.
I see. So you are partnered with community colleges?
We're meeting with Evergreen this week, and we've been partnering through BACWA. The problem or the challenge we see with BACWA is the partner community colleges that they're really developing relationships with are in Solano County. And we would really like to develop local opportunities for local residents.
Can I suggest Metro Ad?
That'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember KHAMIS.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for educating me personally on this issue. Sometimes I feel like I'm behind on this specific topic. But I wanted to ask, it seems to me like, an academy, as you said, a police academy might be in order, and we could probably run something through a community college with some on-hand training. And this is just a suggestion. I'm not trying to be funny, but if we can give it a better name like pollution control engineer or don't put the word waste in it so that people don't get discouraged. If you can market it better, perhaps more people would get into the field.
That's a great point. We'll be creative.
Thank you again for your report in this initiative.
Councilmember Oliverio.
I just wanted to say I forgot the point, and Councilmember Chu had covered it quite well, is on the Metro Ed, or also known as CCOC on Capitol Expressway. They offer all those HVAC classes and metal work and other things. And obviously, a lot of people getting out of the military have experience using machinery of different types, whether it be on an aircraft carrier or land-based situation. And then at the end of this, do we actually own the curriculum when we're done?
We do. We own the copyright to all the materials.
And so then we can provide it to another municipality for a fee?
We could become a regional training facility. We could do a lot of things. I'm looking forward to a time where we have that bandwidth, but we really would like to have a foothold in creating those opportunities in the South Bay.
But part of the curriculum that will be created will be this computer-based or web-based type of curriculum.
It's classroom, it's practical. There'll be some online opportunities where it makes sense, but really our facility is the largest facility in the area. We are a training ground, and we've seen that as our staff have gone to other facilities. They're in high demand because the skills that they gain at our facility are beyond what they're going to get at a lesser facility. And so we think that we can continue to build on that and create some regional opportunities as well.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chu.
Thank you, Mayor. Our facility is so outdated, so we're going to spend that $2 million to train the workers to know the in and out of this outdated equipment, knowing that in a few years there will be new the equipment's coming to the water treatment plant?
Yeah, I can appreciate that perspective, and I don't think I was clear enough when I talked in the background section. But as we look at our CIP, we're really only addressing maybe 40% of the equipment at the facility. So it's a $2 billion capital improvement plan that we are spreading out over more like 15 to 20 years. The short-term 5-year program does have a huge investment, but the remaining equipment on the facility will be there for many years. So we need to integrate people now and then build in that culture and that process so that we're capturing the new equipment as well. But half of the equipment will still be there in 8 to 10 years.
So this $2 million just to train our employee on the other half, which will be there for the coming years. We're not going to cover those ones that we will be probably wheeling them out in a few years.
So as we develop our strategy on which equipment we focus on first, certainly we're matching that with the capital improvement program, and equipment that's going to be changed out in the next several years is just not going to be covered, because we can sort of limp along as we have been and that equipment, and we'll ensure that the CIP captures it. So there's a prioritization scheme that we'll be working closely with the capital improvement program to ensure that it moves forward. But we're also really creating a cultural change where we don't rely on one individual's knowledge to ensure that we understand a piece of equipment or how to operate something. We're really looking to have more interchangeability between staff, the ability to rotate people, and not have so much reliance on those few individuals and that legacy knowledge. So the cultural change in and of itself will help us move forward more swiftly in the future and not be in a position where we have to have so much overtime because we simply can't leave the new hires on their own.
Will the supplier or the equipment manufacturers provide some training?
For the new equipment, that is a part of how we're doing procurement for new equipment.
How about the old one? They're all out of business, or they don't have any menus, and they don't. They're just gone.
I'll let Joanna add, but some of the equipment was installed in 1955, and it's our staff may know it better than anyone.
1955 is probably going to be phasing out pretty soon. We're not spending $2 million to train the people to work on the 1955 equipment, are we?
Well, it does depend entirely upon what pieces of equipment we're talking about. So, you've heard us talk, I think, a lot about our engines. So those engines, the project that will phase out those large internal combustion engines is in the pipeline for probably 5 to 8 years planning to get it all installed, put in, designed, installed. In the interim, though, we have old engines. We have old engines that need to be maintained and maintained well. So we'll be doing some training around equipment that is staying in the facility. We know that we're going to be transitioning it, but that we have to kind of get our brand new staff trained up to the level of what few experienced staff we have all across all of our classifications. So yeah, there will be points where we will be training people on technology that one could say is older technology. However, in the wastewater field, I will tell you that there is movement at certain key aspects of the technology that's changing. We're introducing a lot more instrumentation. We're introducing a lot more automation. So we'll be changing in the technology that way. But the nuts and bolts of a wastewater treatment plant doesn't really change all that much. Centrifugal pumps, specific types of pumps, specific types of processes, they're consistent across all of the facilities that I know of and in our wastewater business. And
so
we'll
you're
be
talking about the
things.
$2.2 million on pretty much on the water treatment 101 then. Very basic one, not really specific and technical detail.
Well, let me give you a short rundown of how this training program is going to go. There's going to be a basic layer of basic 101 across all of these pieces of equipment and all of these processes. Then the next layer is systems. How do all these pieces connect together? And it's typically actually how you train a wastewater treatment plant operator. You train them in the specific process that they go to, then you train them in the systems, and then finally you train them in the alarms management, where you say, okay, how do you respond to an emergency? In fact, when an operator feels like they're comfortable in an emergency, that's how we always used to talk, we used to laugh about it. Yeah, if you know that you can respond to any alarm in your process area, you knew you were trained. You were ready to go. And that's how this training program's going to go. So it's basics, systems, and then alarms.
Okay, so it's really for the management, not really a hands-on.
No, it's for
it's
for our
the
staff.
operators?
Yeah, it's for our staff. I would, believe me, I'll be looking at it a lot, but it's for my staff. It's absolutely for my staff.
Okay.
I think that concludes the discussion. We have a motion to approve on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Taking us to the open forum, which is the last item before we'll adjourn until 7 on the open forum. Mr. Wall.
To Councilmember Chu, I forgot to include you as a member of the Treatment Plant Advisory Committee. I'm sorry. You're a newcomer. You don't have the same level of non-doing as your contemporaries. I'd like to know if the City of San Jose has standards for residential housing with reference to allowing a house to have blistering paint, 12 people, 6 adults, 6 children, and an 1,100 square foot house, dilapidation all over the structure, also being able to act as a satellite office for another company. On another property, I've spoke on this Friday, and Mr. Attorney, on the death certificate for the female, the informant is also dead, which was a family member. The issue is how to keep dead people alive on property titles for the purpose of either negligently or intentionally evading property tax reassessments. Now, this one property that I'm talking about is in San Jose, in my neighborhood, and it's assessed at roughly $19,500 for property tax purposes. Other houses in the same area go for over $600,000. The owners have been dead for several years. So it raises an interesting question how Prop 13 applies or it doesn't apply. I also want to put forth the fact that all of you appear to have a very limited knowledge of the water pollution control plant. And people at home don't understand that. And when you talk about uber level of detail, I have that. I was there in 1992 when water pollution control started its decline because it was melded in to the Environmental Services Department. This department should stand by itself with competent managers, not appointed under 411.1 of the city charter, and then run the place into a ditch. Thank you, and have a good afternoon.
William Stewart? Nobody here? Okay, that concludes the open forum. We'll recess till 7 p.m. This is a continuation of the meeting we started much earlier today. We have an agenda for this evening, including a couple of ceremonial items. Before we get there, I just want to let the audience know of the actions that have already been taken today. There are some matters that are not going to be heard tonight that will be heard on November 19th. You want to translate that?
Quería informarle que uno de los artículos que vamos a hablar hoy han sido aplazados para el 19 de noviembre.
Those would include the Rocket Ship School, Thornton Way project, and the Five Wounds Village
Eso,
plans.
eso incluye el Rocket Ship, Escuela Pública, y la compañía Development Launchpad.
So those will not be heard this evening. We're not going to take testimony on Rocket Ship, Thornton Way, or Five Wounds Village plans.
Esos no se van a escuchar hoy, los Rocket Ship, Thornwood y el Launchpad Development.
Okay, so we will begin our evening with the ceremonial items. I'd like to start by inviting Councilmember Campos to join me at the podium. Tonight we're presenting a commendation to the 2013 AIA graduating class in recognition of their civic leadership and achievements. Councilmember Campos has some of the details.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Today I have the special privilege to honor and recognize the Latina Coalition of Silicon Valley. The Latina Coalition of Silicon Valley educates, prepares, and connects Latinas in the area of civic engagement and leadership development. They also share amongst each other the notion of sisterhood and support each other as working professionals, but also as personal friends. There are approximately 150 active members and hundreds of other friends and partners who contribute to help achieve the mission of the Latina Coalition. The members are diverse in ethnicity, age, education, and professional background. The membership consists of students, to city council members and entrepreneurs, to executive directors. Everyone makes a powerful contribution to the Latina Coalition family. Each member is committed to community and willingly takes part to make a positive difference. The Latina Coalition also has an annual leadership program, and tonight we are recognizing the 2013 graduating class. So I now ask Mayor Reed to please present this commendation to the women of the Latina Coalition of Silicon Valley.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Javier Campos, members of the council. My name is Jackie Guzman. I'm president-elect of the Latina Coalition of Silicon Valley. We're a nonprofit organization run by 11 volunteer board members dedicated to creating a leadership pipeline for Latinas in Silicon Valley. We are most proud of our AIA program, a 6-month leadership program designed for women 18 to 26 that teaches them how to navigate institutions of power and use their voice to advocate for issues affecting the Latino community. The 2013 class is our 6th graduating class of AIAs. To date, the Latina Coalition has trained nearly 100 young women through the AIA program. And I'm proud to say that we see our graduates serving on boards and commissions, working for community-based organizations, and even here in your council offices, making San Jose a great place to live. A special thank you to Councilmember Campos for inviting us here tonight. It's an honor to be recognized by council. I hope you will continue to support this great program and the work of the Latina Coalition. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to invite Councilmember KALRA to join me at the podium as we are proclaiming October as Hindu Awareness and Appreciation Month. Councilmember KALRA has the details. We're going to have some folks come down and join us, I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. If we can, if I'd ask Mr. Vineet Sharma to join me up here at the podium, as I have the great honor of recognizing Hindu American Awareness and Appreciation Month in the city of San Jose. And as someone, certainly that joins with the rest of my council colleagues in recognizing all the great diversity we have here in San Jose, that adds to the great mix of people that we have here that contributes to our community. It's certainly an honor for me to be able to do this for the first time in the city of San Jose, especially being the first Hindu American to ever serve on the San Jose City Council. I was very proud to have the opportunity to have Diwali celebrated in City Hall in 2009 for the first time. And this is a great honor because It follows up a tremendous honor that the Hindu American community had in Sacramento when Senator Ellen Corbett had an official proclamation, official state resolution adopted by the entire California State Senate, which recognizes October as Hindu American Awareness and Appreciation Month. And so, as Hindu Americans, the key word, I think, certainly is American. We certainly do whatever we can to become part of the fabric of this great country and this great community. Growing up Hindu, there's no doubt, just like with many other folks in the different faiths that we all follow, it certainly is a part of our upbringing, a part of our heritage. The Hindu American Foundation has done a tremendous job in advocating on behalf of the Hindu American community on a number of different issues, including advertising campaigns, textbook issues. The reality is that there's still a lot of misinformation out there about Hinduism and about Hindus, and we just want to do whatever we can to support organizations like HAF to ensure that all of us can live together and get to know each other a little better, get to know our cultures, our faiths, and our maybe ethnic origins even. And so I think that really adds to us living as neighbors together and helping all of us prosper here in Silicon Valley. And so with that, Mayor, I'd ask if you could please present the proclamation to Vineet Sharma. Vineet is on the national executive team for the Hindu American Foundation, and he's also the government outreach coordinator for the state of California.
Well, thank you very much, Councilmember KALRA. Thank you, Mayor, and the City Council for passing this resolution. Just a special thanks to Councilmember KALRA for also coming up to Sacramento. As he mentioned, it was a historic day. This is the first time that a resolution declaring a Hindu American Awareness Appreciation Month was declared. First time in the history of California and first time in the history of the United States. So that was a proud moment. I just want to take 1 minute to kind of let you know why the Hindu American Foundation promotes passage of resolutions such as this, whether it's at the state level or at the city level. I think most of us know that Hindu Americans are doing well as a community. Here in San Jose, 10% of Silicon Valley startups are by Hindu Americans. 90% of Indian Americans are Hindu Americans. And also as a group, the education and incomes of Hindu Americans are highest in the nation. So the question remains, why do Hindu Americans promote these resolutions and get excited and really appreciate it when there's an opportunity to raise awareness and increase understanding? And the main reason is that there is a sense in the community that there is a negative portrayal or misrepresentation of Hinduism in textbooks for children or in the media every day. This is an important problem for the community and a very big challenge for the community. And what we feel is the best answer is to raise awareness and give an opportunity to educate. Important contributions from Hindu Americans like yoga, meditation, Vedanta philosophy are not always associated with Hinduism and Hindu Americans. Sometimes a lot of people believe Hindu Americans are polytheistic, that they believe in many gods. This is just an example of the kind of misunderstandings that are so prevalent in our community. The culture of tolerance and pluralism, of nonviolence, of vegetarianism, of deep respect for education and knowledge, these are at the core of what Hindu Americans believe in our communities every day. So yes, Hindu Americans are doing well in San Jose and in our communities. But unfortunately, a lot of what people know about Hindu Americans and their beliefs is incorrect. And that is why these resolutions are important and appreciated. And I'll just finish by saying that the Hindu American Foundation is working with the California Senate Education Committee and the Senate Majority Leader to pass legislation to improve California's textbooks and make them more accurate. And that's something that we should all support. So again, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, San Jose City Council. And thank you, Councilmember Ash KALRA, for this wonderful resolution. And thank you all.
Next, I'd like to invite Vice Mayor Nguyen to join me at the podium as we're presenting a commendation recognizing Jose Mendoza, owner of San Jose Menswear, for his contributions to the Tropicana Shopping Center and his leadership and commitment to improving the lives of all San Jose residents.
Thank you very much, Mayor. For more than 40 years, Jose Mendoza has enriched the San Jose community through his business, San Jose's Menswear, a Western-style clothing company located at the Tropicana Center. Besides running his very successful clothing store, Jose also served as the president of the Tropicana Merchants Association and is an active member in our community. Over the years, Jose has become a pillar of support and leadership in the Latino community through his advocacy work with immigrant, labor, and small business issues, including closing his shop in support of the May Day rallies for immigration reform. Jose's compassion and strong community values have allowed him to work closely with various groups over the years to organize different cultural festivals and support community organizations and small businesses. He's been able to bring people of all cultures together and create a united community to share the vision of sustaining a healthy and safe city. I want to thank Mr. Mendoza for his service and dedication to the vitality of the city of San Jose and for enriching the community through his philanthropic and entrepreneurial spirit for more than 40 years. With his retirement, we all wish him well. We're sad that he's retiring, but I think he deserves it. And so at this time, I would like to ask Mayor Reed to present the commendation to Mr. Mendoza.
My name is Rich De La Rosa. I'm actually a merchant in the Tropicana Shopping Center. And I was asked by the family just to say a few words. First of all, I wish to thank Vice Mayor Nguyen and Mayor Reed for giving this recognition to Jose. It's recognition not just of a successful businessman, but a loving family man who came to San Jose from Mexico with dreams and desires. He is a man who truly cared for others and wanted to make a difference. I've known Jose for over 30 years, both as a client, friend, and a warrior. My parents and grandparents had business relationships with both Jose and Consuelo Mendoza. Representing 3 generations of De La Rosas, I can tell you they would all be proud tonight because he made a difference. It's hard to believe, but 10 years ago, almost to the day, Jose, with his tenacity and sure will, led with the help of others to overcome the San Jose Redevelopment Agency from taking the Tropicana Shopping Center by eminent domain. Truly a historic event. He defended not only his own livelihood, but that of about 70 businesses, including my family's. And it was against an abuse of power. He defended many who couldn't speak English. Jose made a difference. Whoever said you can't beat City Hall didn't know Jose. Jose is a very proud man and has earned his success through hard work with the support of his beautiful wife, Consuelo, and his loving children and family. He has proved to be a man of character, strong will, and conviction. I am very honored not only to have known him as a peer and a business partner, but to call him my friend. Congratulations, Jose. You have made a difference to San Jose.
The first item of business tonight are the tentative approval of general plan consent calendar items. There are 3 items left on the calendar, items 10.1A, B, and C. We'll consider those all together. Motion is okay. We're going to pull C off for a comment. So we have a motion on the balance. No request to speak on any of those. So on those 2 items, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Those are approved. 10.1C, Councilmember KHAMIS.
Yeah, this happens to be a development in my area, and I wanted to thank the people who organized the community meeting, and it was very well done, and it helped us. The way that this development took shape, answered a lot of controversy going on in the area, and I wanted to thank the people who organized that community meeting, and actually got a lot of support rather than the other way. Usually developments don't lead into nice congenial meetings, and I wanted to thank the people who planned the meeting originally, and I will vote in favor of this. So, motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Councilmember LICCARDO.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question for staff. I had some conversations with the Audubon Society about this site, and I'm wondering, did they submit a letter or email of any sort, specifically with regard to concerns about preservation of floodplain?
We don't seem to have a record of that. This is considered more of a cleanup amendment consistent with the prior approvals that were done on the property.
Okay. And if I recall correctly, this site is at the confluence of 2 creeks. Is that right?
That's right. There are 2 creeks nearby, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have a motion to approve. On that motion, all in favor? Opposed? 1 opposed. LICCARDO opposed. Motion carries. That concludes the general plan related items. We have category 11.1 would be next. Public hearings on consent calendar for other matters. We have 2 items left, 11.1A and B. Anybody wish to pull those for discussion? Is there a motion? I have a motion to approve 11.1 items. On that motion, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Those are approved. Taking us to 11.6, rezoning of properties in a portion of Alum Rock Neighborhood Business District between King Road and Highway 680. Councilmember Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been a long time coming. I want to thank the Planning Department for all the work that you've put into this. I remember this first coming before us when I believe Asha and I were on the Planning Commission, and back then it was called form-based zoning, and now it's the Alum Rock Neighborhood Business District rezoning. So I think this is going to facilitate the vision of the General Plan 2040 and really create the development that we need along Alum Rock, especially with BRT coming through and a lot of the new investments that are going through there. So with that, I'd like to move my memo.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. I'd just like to congratulate both Councilmember Camposes, because this took not just 2 council members, but 2 Camposes to do this, because it started with then Councilmember Nora Campos and finishing off Councilmember Javier Campos. So these things take a while. This is 5 years or more. I forget how long we worked on this. I know it takes a lot of staff work, and we appreciate that. Alum Rock has got a lot of opportunity out there. I think this will facilitate the development in the area. We've had a lot of engagement from city staff, redevelopment staff, back when we had a redevelopment agency, as well as Alum Rock Business Association and property owners. So it's a good deal. I'm certainly going to support the motion. Councilmember LICCARDO.
Thank you, Mayor, and congratulations to Councilmember Campos. I know he's been working hard to get this over the goal line. And thank you to planning staff. Just a quick question about Main Street planning or zoning districts. Have we clearly identified where else we're likely to create these districts, or is that still to be determined?
In the zoning code right now, it specifically mentions Alum Rock. We are looking at whether or not we can retool this to apply to other neighborhood business district streets. It would require some outreach and tailoring the development standards to other places. At the time that we created the zoning districts, we had a request from the community not to do a blanket zoning citywide, so we want to respect that and tailor it as needed. We are also looking at an urban village zoning district, also having some form-based characteristics. So we're trying to look at a couple different variations to really encourage the mix of uses.
Thank you.
Councilor Oliverio.
Laurel, when you said the community said they didn't want to have these kind of streamlined processes to facilitate development in these areas, I think in the reality you're talking about 5 people who said that.
Well, yeah, and obviously there's a lot of different comments that we get. We are streamlining development. We've already been doing that through a variety of processes. What we want to make sure, though, is that the zoning regulations, because of the streamline, can actually work in a variety of NBD, neighborhood business district constructs. So we certainly respect what those 5 people say, but there are other questions that arose that should be studied, just because not all urban villages or neighborhood business districts are alike.
Fair enough. I just want to recognize of what we're managing the city for the majority of the residents and the majority of growth, and not just to a few vocal folks, although they don't represent the majority. So I just want to make sure we are facilitating development for the future of San Jose.
No, it's an important clarification in that when we wrote this, we really wrote this to apply citywide. So, having the bone structure there, we're going to go and start running with it here, but you'll be seeing this coming in other parts of the city.
We have a motion to approve. On that motion, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Motion is approved. That concludes the business. We have open forum as the last item. Mason Kimmel, Tara Puchamani, come on down.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Reed, council members. My name is Mason Kimmel. I'm the District 10 Youth Commissioner. So November is National Homeless Youth and Runaway Prevention Month, and I'm here to be the voice of nearly 800 youth living on the streets of San Jose on any given night. More than 25% of these homeless persons are under 18 years old. They are minors. They could be me. The county point-in-time count conducted this year found homeless youth in every council district in San Jose. Councilmember Liccardo's downtown District 3 had the highest number of homeless minors and young adults, but even in my district, District 10, we recorded 18 homeless youth. One homeless youth is too many. Nearly 800 homeless youth is a tragedy. The San Jose Youth Commission is looking to find ways to help our peers exit the streets and be allowed to grow up in a safe and caring environment. Weren't we once called the Valley of Heart Delights? We as policymakers should put an end to youth homelessness by investing in more affordable housing and supportive services for youth currently living on the streets. We still have the chance to change their lives. For the street youth are not homeless, they are just without a home.
Good evening, Mayor Reed and council members. November is National Homeless Youth and Runaway Prevention Month. On any given night, there are more than 1,200 homeless youth on the streets of Santa Clara County. On November 1st, you are invited to take the first step. Join our Greenlight Project walk and rally to raise awareness about youth homelessness in our city and our country. Together, we can create change. Join Bill Wilson Center, the San Jose Youth Commission, and California Youth Connection on a 1-mile walk from San Jose City Hall to Bill Wilson Center's drop-in center, where street youth can find help and support. This is a free walk and rally. Bring yourself, your family, your friends, your school, your church, and your business. Everyone is welcome. Our rally begins at 5:30 on November 1st, right here in City Hall. We hope you will make the effort to be here as we light the way home for the youth living on the streets in San Jose. Thank you.
That concludes the open forum, concludes our meeting. We're adjourned.